I'd like to call the meeting to order.
Here.
Ms. Gensler? Mr. Barton?
Here.
Ms. McKenna?
Yes.
Ms. Laura?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Lamella?
Yes.
The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to advance notice of and to attend meetings of public bodies at which their business is affected, excuse me, which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Brick Township Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be posted on the Administration Office Bulletin Board, the official district website, and Channel BTV 20, and sent to the Asbury Park Press, the Brick Times, the Star Ledger, and Municipal Clerk's Office.
Executive session?
I make a motion for executive session.
I make.
So moved.
Second.
Whereas the Brick Township Board of Education has been formed pursuant to applicable New Jersey statutes, and whereas the board is charged with the responsibility of performing all acts and doing all things consistent with the law and the rules of State Board of Education necessary for the lawful and proper conduct, equipment, and maintenance of the public schools and public school property of the Brick Township School District, and whereas Section 7 of the Open Publics Meeting Act permits the exclusion of the public for a meeting of the board in certain circumstances, and whereas the board has determined that circumstances exist for such an executive session, and whereas the board has found the action described below to be necessary and proper, now therefore be resolved by the board on March 17, 2016, that the public shall be excluded from the discussion of and action on the executive session herein set forth. The session will be approximately 60 minutes, and the general nature of the subject matter to be discussed is 4 HIB matters, personnel settlement agreement, special education litigation matter. It is anticipated at this time that the above stated subject matter will be made public if and when it is deemed to be in the public interest to do so, and the need for confidentiality is no longer required by the board.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Ms. McKenna?
Yes.
Ms. Laura?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Lamella?
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Let's give everybody a few minutes to find a seat. Thank you all for coming. I'd like to make the motion to return to public session.
Second.
Karen, second.
Yes.
Ms. Gensler?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Ms. McKenna?
Yes.
Ms. Laura?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Lamella?
Yes. Everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Gilnella, would you like to introduce the presentations for tonight?
Thank you, Mr. Lamella. Let's start off with the Brick Memorial Student Representative, Brooke Carney. I believe she's here.
Okay, so hi, I'm Brooke. Most of you probably don't know me. It's my first time doing this. But I'm a senior at Brick Memorial High School, and I'm the community liaison for student government. So I figured that it was my time today to go over what's been going on throughout the school. So we had our peanut butter and jelly drive, which was a huge success. Over 500 jars were collected, and then they were distributed to local churches in our area. We also had the Palace Club movie night at the Brick Rec Center on February 26th, and we had around 30 volunteers to come help out. We also had the Teacher Jeopardy, which was an incredible turnout. We had over 300 people there, and Mr. Bloom defended his winning title once again. In addition, Key Club Academic Bowl was held last night and was a success where kids and teachers teamed up to showcase their knowledge on an array of different topics. We also had a spring door decorating competition, which we judged Friday, tomorrow, by the administration of our school. It was a spring theme. The spring musical, the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, opens tonight and will run Friday through Sunday. This performance was put together only a month after their successful rendition of Little Shop of Horrors. And then on April 8th, we will be holding our Disney-themed special education dance, and anyone willing to do so can donate any baked goods on the day of the event. And finally, from the athletic department, we concluded all of our winter sports with celebratory banquets. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brooke. And the Brick High School student, Lexi Adams.
Hi, I'm Lexi Adams. I'm a senior from Brick Township High School, and I'm president of the National Honor Society. I would like to start by telling you guys about some fundraisers we had going on. First, we have Jacob Basilotto, who is a freshman at Brick Township High School, and he was born with half of a heart. He has a congenital heart defect and has been waiting for a heart transplant since December 10, 2015. He has undergone multiple treatments, including 4 open heart surgeries. The freshman class and their advisors knew what Jacob was going through and wanted to help him and his family with medical bills. So they started selling blue and green ribbons for $1. And they were quite successful. Almost every student at BTHS now has one of these ribbons pinned onto their backpacks. When I went to go buy one from one of the freshman class advisors, Miss Hudson, she told me her heart was warmed by the amount of students that bought them and continue to drop off money for him. BTHS wishes Jacob and his family the best of luck through the rest of his journey. If you would like to donate to Jacob, you can visit the Facebook page, A New Heart for Jacob, for more information. The Tom Hebert Beatlemania fundraiser was a really big success, thanks to all of the staff and students that worked so hard to put it together for him. The class of 2016 also hosted a 3-on-3 basketball tournament open to all students and staff, which had a really big turnout. Thankfully, we will get to use this money towards senior ball and other expenses. An upcoming fundraiser we have will take place here tomorrow night at 7 o'clock in the East Gym. It is the Brick PBA Helping Hands basketball game to raise money for a family in Brick. The spring sports teams have just got started, so right now I don't have any exciting news about them. However, the girls bowling team will be honored tonight for their victory at the Tournament of Champions. We also have 4 students being honored in the Teen Arts program. First, we have Claire Haviland, whose work will be critiqued for excellence at the county teen arts level. Then we have Skylar Milianta and Lucy Lynch, whose work will be exhibited at the Teen Arts State Festival. And one of our juniors, Allie Bechtold, she received the highest honor a student can get. Her piece will be selected for a Teen Arts touring exhibit, and only 4 students in Ocean County were chosen for this exhibit. In addition to our student achievements, BTHS is happy to honor Ruth Ann Babbo for Support Staff Member of the Month and William Steinbetz for Teacher of the Month. Right now, we're just getting ready for park and spring break, and I look forward to seeing all of you after that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lexi. We have a few winter sport recognitions. I'll ask Mr. Lamella and perhaps another board member to go up with our ADs. Let's start off with our newer AD, Mr. Sarluca. You can start off.
Mike, rotate this.
If you could, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you on behalf of all of Brick Memorial High School, our athletic department, our administration, Miss Marianne Cavanaugh, who's here representing Mrs. Joseph, is actually at our school play tonight, and of course Mr. Blessing and Mr. O'Cone. We want to say thank you to the entire Board of Education for having us here tonight, Mr. Gianella, and all the central administration, so we can celebrate a very successful winter season. I'd like to thank all of our coaches, all of our players, all of our parents and families for all their hard work and commitment throughout this past season. I would also like to personally thank our athletic secretary, Mrs. Sarah Petricoro, everything that she does, and not only helping me, but everything she does for each individual, team, coach, and athlete really makes everything, work very smoothly up there. I'd also like to thank once again, Mr. Hanchin and Mrs. Redden over at Brick for continuing to help, groom me along and, help me get through my first couple months in this new position. It's an absolute honor to be able to work for such dedicated individuals, both coaches and student athletes, who really do give so much of their time and their efforts towards, committed success. This year we had a successful winter with several teams making postseason tournaments. We've won a couple of championships along the way, and we saw many individual accolades, including several Division I scholarship offers. With that being said, I'd like to first recognize our bowling programs, who not only continue to carry on a tradition of excellence, but believe it or not, I believe these guys set new standards for what bowling has become at Brick Memorial. Both our boys and girls programs, they truly are, the cream of the crop. And combined with Brick Township, both schools really, they offer so much pride and so much success to not only the town and the schools, but just, every time you drive by that bowling alley, I can't help but think of what our bowlers and what the program has become. It's been a pleasure to witness this firsthand for really the first time that I've ever been able to do so. So I want to congratulate all of the athletes and the teams, and in doing so, I want to call up our girls coach, Coach Dave Thompson.
Thank you, everyone, for having me here tonight. I wasn't sure exactly what you wanted to hear, but I did write up a few things, and I'm going to try to make it brief, because if you let me go talking about the teams, I could be here for a while. So I'll give you just a quick summary of some of the things our teams accomplished. And girls, why don't you come up here and join me? You can just stand. All right, first some team accomplishments. We were A South co-champs along with the other side of town. We were also Group 4 state champions, and throughout the course of the season, we bowled in 7 other tournaments hosted by various schools. And of those 7 tournaments, we finished first place 4 times, second place 2 times, and third place 1 time. As far as individual achievements, in short conference, we had high average with Tori Boughton with a 212. We had Jillian Stewart, who had high game with a 289. She unfortunately couldn't be here tonight. And we had 2 bowlers finish in second place, both with 279s. Tori Boughton and McKenna Collier. When it came to high series, combination of all 3 games, we had first, second, and third place. Tori Boughton had a 790 series, Jill Stewart had a 772 series, and Sarah Pitcher had a 735 series. I don't know how to describe this to you, but there are 3 tournaments throughout the course of the year that were not team, they were individual. One was hosted by Manchester. One is, of course, short conference, and the last one being states. In the Manchester tournament, we took first, second, third, and fourth place. Tori Bird won the honors with first place. In the short conference individual tournament, we took first, second, and third place. Misty Downs took honors with first place. And in the entire state of New Jersey, I can't tell you how many girls that'd be. They narrowed it down to a top 5, and they bowled step ladder where you have to earn, win and move on. And we had 3 girls finish in 4th, 3rd, and 2nd in the state. So they were bowling against each other, all of these girls. We had 3 girls named to the first team All-State. Tori Boughton, Misty Downs, and McKenna Collier. All three are seniors. The last thing that I want to mention, we have 2 seniors that have been 4-year starting varsities, and thanks to Mr. Boughton, I have a little bit of information on their career here at Memorial. In 4 years, they bowled in 220 regular season matches, and they had a record of 195.5 and 20.5. In 4 years, they bowled outside of I'm not sure. Actually, I'm probably inclusive. In 4 years, they bowled in 43 tournaments, and they took first or second place in 33 out of the 43 tournaments. Tori Boughton is going to be graduating and moving on to Sacred Heart, where she will continue to bowl. And McKenna Collier is graduating and moving on to Adelphi, where she will continue to bowl, both of them receiving scholarships. The last, I would be remiss if I didn't say, I owe a debt of gratitude to all of the parents. Anyone who's a parent and a coach, you know how much time and effort and money goes into allowing your students to participate in something like this. And outside of the parents, I'd also like to thank the feeder program at Ocean Lanes. I get these girls, and they're already fantastic, and I help tweak here and there, but really I'm already working with excellent bowlers. And lastly, I'd like to thank Mrs. Sarluka, who's been in tremendous help all season long. With that, I'd like to present their awards. I've got the boys. All right, first, McKenna Collier for number 3 in short conference individuals and number 4 in the state individuals. Next one is Misty Downs for number 1 in the short conference individuals and number 3 in the state individuals. Next one is for Tori Boughton, who finished in 2nd in both the short conference individuals and in the state individuals. And finally, awarding to the team for recognition of the Group 4 South Sectional Champions and the Group 4 Overall State Champions. The boys coach could not make it here tonight, but I do have some recognitions for some of the boys who qualified for the states. When I call your name, if you wouldn't mind coming up. Alec Hare for finishing in the top 20 in the state individuals. Robbie Guzman for also finishing in the top 20 individuals. And Andrew Lazarchek for also finishing in the top, all 3 of them finishing in the top 20 in the state individual tournament. And if you guys could just remain here. Not only do we have a fantastic girls team, but the boys team is just as impressive. They won not only the short conference championship as a team, they won the Group 4 South Sectionals as a team, and they also won the Group 4 Overall State Championship.
Congratulations.
Personally, this next young lady is, in over the better part of 25 years of being involved in Brick Memorial Athletics, one of my favorite all-time Mustangs. Her unyielding energy and fearlessness, characterized her championship character and made anyone who watched her, who had the privilege to watch her play, an instant fan of Mustang basketball. To acknowledge her accolades, I'll call up the girls' basketball coach, Tom LaCourchek.
Thank you. I'd like to just thank the board and everybody in attendance for being here. As Coach Sarluka alluded to, we're here to recognize our only senior in the program this year, Sam Biablocki. I'd like to say a couple words about her to make sure that everybody understands how deserving she truly is of all of her accomplishments. Sam's been a varsity player varsity starter for 4 years. She's played in 95 games in her career, ending with a 51-44 overall record. She's scored 930 points, 200 rebounds, 147 assists, 117 steals. As a junior, last year she was recognized to the All-A South second team, This year as a senior, she won the inaugural Bob C.Z. Zarnewski Award from the WOBM tournament, which is awarded to the player in the tournament who has shown relentless effort in playing the game of basketball, never giving up regardless of the score, never showing any lack of character. To be nominated for such an honor speaks volumes to Sam and her character. This year as a senior, she's also nominated to the first team All-A South and also invited to play in the All-Shore All-Star game. So I would like to take a moment and with your help, please acknowledge Sam Biablocki for all of her efforts. Thank you.
Okay, next up is, we'll call up our, one of our indoor track coaches, Coach Chad Cutts.
You guys could come up, please. Thank you to the Board of Education, to the administration, to Mr. Sarluca and Mrs. Petricora for their support, and of course to the parents, a lot of early morning drop-offs and late night pickups. As a team, the girls this season placed third at the Ocean County Relay Championships, second place team at the Ocean County Open Championships, and were third place in sectionals. And now I want to recognize some of the individual accomplishments that they had. I'll go through the list and then I'll give them their awards at the end. Senior Dana Luma was 6th place at Central Jersey Group 3 sectionals in the 3,200 meters. Sophomore Jayla Thomas broke the school record in the 55 meters. She was 2nd place at the Ocean County Championship. She was the Shore Conference champion. She was the Central Jersey Group 3 sectional champion, and she was 12th place at Eastern State Championships. Emily Clayton, who is a senior, she broke the school record in the 55-meter hurdles. She won the Murley Invitational in both the 55-meter hurdles and the high jump. She was 3rd place at the Shore Conference Championships in the high hurdles. She was 2nd place at Central Jersey Group 3 sectionals in the high hurdles. She was 5th place at States for Group 3, and she was 5th place, she was 5th place in high jump and also in the hurdles. So good job, Emily. Keyshawn Carter was he broke the school record in the 55-meter hurdles. He was the Ocean County champion. He was the Group 3 sectional champion. He was 2nd place at state championships. He was 2nd place at the New Jersey Meet of Champions. And he was 6th place at Eastern States Championships, and he qualified for New Balance Indoor Nationals in that event. Rob Hill, senior, one of our high jumpers. School record for the indoor high jump. He was 2nd place, he was the Ocean County high jump champion. He was 2nd place at Shore Conference, 2nd place Group 3 sectionals, 3rd place at Group 3 state championships, and qualified for New Balance Indoor Nationals. Our boys shuttle hurdle relay team, made up of Jordan Frederick, Derek Robertson, Ricky Avalenda, and Keyshawn Carter, broke their own school record. They were 5th at the Group 3 state relay championships, and they also qualified for New Balance Indoor Nationals. And our 2 more relays, the girls 4x4, made up of Hope Byer, Dana Luma, Sam Swider, Jayla Thomas, and Jessica Glass, broke their school record and were 3rd place at Group 3 sectionals. And finally, the boys 4x4, Matt Gustafera, Keyshawn Carter, Rob Hill, and Steve Corsentino were 4th place at the Central Jersey Group 3 sectionals. All right, Keyshawn Carter. Jordan Frederick. Ricky Avalenda. Dana Luma. Emily Clayton. Jayla Thomas. Hope Byer is not here. Sam Swider is not here. Jessica Glass. Rob Hill. And Matt Gustafera. Thank you.
All right, next I want to call up our hockey coach, Coach Chip Bruce.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the Board of Education, the administration, and Ed for the support of the hockey team this year. We had a good season. The boys were very competitive, and we improved a great deal over last year. We are recognizing 3 of our players tonight. Unfortunately, 1 could not be here due to a previous commitment. But what's significant about this recognition is the recognition they're receiving has been voted on by the opposing team's coaches. So everyone we played has recognized the skill and tenacity of these 3 players. And these 3 players happen to be make up the defensive core of our team, if you will, starting with our goalie, and 2 of them are defensemen. And they really held that half of the ice, as well as 2 of the players, obviously the defensemen, also logged considerable ice and were potent offensive threats. So the first recognition, unfortunately, couldn't be here. Logan Vidusic, 2nd team All Division, voted on by all of the Shore Conference coaches. So I'd like to. And, the next recognition is 1st team All Division, our goalie, who boasts a 92% save rate and faced 13, a little over 13, almost 1,400 shots, and he has made just over 1,200 saves over the course of the season. So that's a fantastic achievement. Andrew Sobliski. And the next gentleman that we'd like to recognize earned honorable mention All Division by the coaches. He's one of our captains, great leader on the ice, and when you watch him play, it's amazing what he can do on the ice. Skating, stick handling, and definitely an offensive threat. During his career, he's earned 89 points on 43 goals and 46 assists in the defensive position. That's incredible. So he's well on his way to breaking the 100-point career mark. He's also going to be recognized. He earned another honor next Thursday night. He will be recognized as an all-shore, all-division player in the junior bracket by Sports Zone Media. And he was also voted in an independent poll the best junior player in the Shore Conference. That was an NJ.com poll. So Justin Hulse. Thank you.
I'd also like to recognize, they weren't able to be here today. It just happened this past weekend, but our cheerleading team went down to Virginia this past weekend, and they were varsity co-ed large advanced division national champions. So I just want to congratulate our cheerleading group. And our last coach, but certainly not least, will be our wrestling coach, Coach Mike Denver.
Good evening. First, I would like to thank the Board of Ed, Central Administration, and of course, Mr. Sarluca. I know that Mr. Sarluca's in his first year, but I gotta say, for a basketball guy, he sure knows his wrestling. So, we're very grateful to have him. I mean, he literally he goes above and beyond, especially for me and the athletes. I mean, I'll attest to this. I forgot my shoes tonight, and he actually lent me a pair of shoes. So he's not just all about the athletes. He's also about the coaches. He really cares about his coaches, really cares about his athletes, and we are very, very grateful to have him. So thank you, Mr. Sarluca. First, I want to talk about the team before I get to our athletes. This year was a testament of our wrestlers' character and willpower. We started out the season, we got hit hard last year with graduation. We had 20 seniors graduate, which is a heavy, heavy class and hard to come back from. And I gotta say, my hat is off to them. They came back. We had 17 sophomores. A lot of them stepped up. Our seniors led with their will, with their character, with their determination. And we managed to go 10-8 in the season, losing to Southern, which finished number 2 in the state, and we lost to them by 1 match. So we were right there with them. And we also lost to Jackson Memorial, who eventually became state sectional champions. So I don't think our record attests to how well of a season we actually had. Going on to individuals, we had, to cap off the season, we had 4 district champs, 1 runner-up, continuing our tradition of district champs by going 35 straight years with at least 1 district champ. So. We also had 2 region champs and 2 third-place finishes, which is a 3rd consecutive year where we've had multiple Region 6 champs, which now brings our total to 58 region champs, which is the most in Shore Conference. So. And we finished out the state tournament with 4 state qualifiers, 1 placing and 2 finishing in the top 12 out of, I think it's 326 or 356 schools. So that attests to them and shows their will. And we also had 10 straight years with at least 1 state place winner. So now moving on to our athletes, we had 4 district champs, which were Matt Wardlaw, Gianni Gione, Luke Vescovi, and Nick Rivera, and Chris Hayes finishing as a runner-up in the district. As in our region, we had 2 region champs, which were Gianni Gione and Nick Rivera, and Gianni Gione finished 4th in the state. All division, we had Gianni Gione, Chris Hayes, Nick Rivera. All underclassmen, we had Ian Mueller as a freshman. We had first team all-county, which was Gianni Gione, Christopher Hayes, Nick Rivera, and second team all-county, which was Luke Vescovi and Anthony Mitchell. Most of our wrestlers couldn't be here because some of them had prior commitments, and some of them, unfortunately, the meeting is held now during Division I Nationals. So some of them are actually in New York right now, watching Nationals in New York, and some are at home watching Nationals, and some of them are actually training for next year. So for the one athlete that we do have here, I have to say, he is by far one of the best kids, not only in this program that I have had the fortunate pleasure to coach. He is a leader through and through. Nothing but great things to say about him. So he finished out as a district champ. He finished, excuse me, finished third in the region and top 12 in his weight class. So did an outstanding job. More importantly, athletics is important, but he is a student athlete. He is finishing out his senior career with a GPA of 102.5. He finished 4th in his class, and he has applied to and has been accepted to North Carolina State, University of Florida, and Ohio State, and he wants to be a veterinarian. So he has bright things in his future. He's an outstanding young man, and that is Luke Viscovi. One more thing to add, I would like to also say that Christopher Hayes, who was already committed to a Division I scholarship for football, it didn't stop him to come out. He still came out for wrestling. He put together a terrific senior year. He ended up a district runner-up. He placed 3rd in the region and ended up finishing top 12 in his weight class, where the year before he went 9-8 and didn't make it out of districts. So for him to come back from that kind of career and finish out like that is outstanding. We also had Anthony Mitchell, who will be going on into the Marine Corps, which will be defending our country and defending our rights. So we're very grateful for all of our seniors. And last but not least, I would like to thank our administration, Ms. Kavanaugh, Mrs. Joseph, Coach O'Cone, Mr. Blessing, as well as one of our big-time supporters, Mr. Mosley, who's also here tonight. So again, thank you, Board of Ed. Thank you, parents. Thank you, administration. Thank you, donors. Thank you, sponsors. Thank you very much. Enjoy your evening.
Just one more recognition. Our swim team couldn't be represented tonight, but I wanted to mention one of our boys swimmers, Dylan McKelvey, was an Ocean County champion for the 100-meter backstroke. He finished 4th in the Shore Conference and qualified for the Meet of Champions, finishing 21st in the state. He also finished 4th in the county and 8th in the Shore Conference in the butterfly, set multiple school records for our swim team. So I just wanted to mention him as well, Dylan McKelvey, and I just want to thank you all again for the recognition tonight, and I guess I'll call up Mr. Hanchett.
Thank you, Board of Education. Mr. Gianella, welcome back to Brick Township. I'd like to thank and congratulate all the athletes here tonight, coaches, for the great job you do every day, and the parents for all your support. Bricktown is a great town. I was born and raised here, and thankful that I'm the athletic director at my alma mater. It's a great, great place to be. Our first coach tonight is our basketball coach. I'd just like to say a couple words about Coach Goronsky. He came in here and took over a depleted basketball program that for several years did not win too many games a year, but with his hard work, passion, caring for the boys here at Brick, he was able to have a winning season this year, qualify for the Shore Conference and the state tournament. And I expect big things in the next couple years because he's a quality young gentleman and a coach. Coach Goronsky.
First off, I'd like to thank the Board of Education for me being here tonight. I'd like to thank Mr. Hanchett for very kind words and the pressure after that expect big things comment. I would also like to thank my administration for always supporting me. Tonight I'd like to represent one of my players. He's one of those kids that I have had the pleasure of coaching and honor of coaching for the last 2 years. Kenny Buell came here when he was a junior from Toms River North. He has been one of those players that is a blessing to me every single day. Not just on the basketball court, but anytime I need him. He was one of those players that I can go to, make sure that I can make my other players follow in his lead. He leads by example, but he also leads every single time in the classroom and outside of school as well. Kenny was fortunate enough to be our team captain, and he also led us to our best record in the last 9 years of Brick Township basketball. Kenny led us to a regular season record of 13-8. He led us to a first short conference berth and first state berth in the last 9 years. Kenny was selected this year as a first team All-A South, and he was also just selected as a Shore Sports Zone All-Shore player this year. At this time, I would like to introduce Kenny Buell.
By the way, I was Kenny's father's freshman soccer coach here, freshman year. Great family. Okay, second, our wrestling coach, Coach Opacity, has done an excellent job with our program here. He's won multiple state sectional championships. He's one of the winningest wrestling coaches we've had here since 1958. And in May, he's going to be inducted into the Wall of Fame here at Brick Township High School. Coach?
Good evening, folks. Again, I would like to thank everybody for inviting the student athletes here this evening. I'd like to thank Mr. Hanchen as well as Mr. Philippone, our administration, our Parents Club, who does all the work during this wrestling season for us, and Miss Margaret Redden, who is our athletic director, secretary, who just really does above and beyond for myself and all the other coaches. Last year, for our team, we were actually hit a little bit with the seniors. We had a number of seniors that actually graduate last year. This year, our record was actually 11-8. We took third in District 23 as a team. We were state sectional quarterfinalists. Shore Conference tournament pre-quarters we made. Fourth in A South, third in the Hall Classic, and fourth in the Cole Classic. We're also very lucky and proud to have Coach Mike Berardinelli as the District 23 Assistant Coach of the Year. For our individuals this evening, our first student athlete, Joe Ferrigni, was a sophomore, 106-pounder for us. His record this year was 23-7. Again, he was a district champ and also went to regions for us. We had 9 student athletes actually qualify for regions this year. Our second student athlete that's being honored this evening is Dean Helstowski, who is named for our Brick Township wrestling team, the Shore Conference.com Wrestler of the Year. He had a record of 33-3. He led the team with wins. He was also a district champ. He took third in the region. He went on to the states and actually won a match and lost 2. He was a Hall Classic champion as well as the Colt Classic champion. Please, if you would, clap for these young men, Joe Friggy and Dean Helstowski.
Coach Santoro, would you like to come up, please? Okay, this is our, and Coach Mascolo. This is the first year we've had a co-ed competition cheer squad, and the coaches here have done an outstanding job. Coach Santoro's first year as a head coach, and you know, I'm very proud that in their first year of competition in the co-ed, they were able to win the New Jersey State Cheerleading Championship. It's outstanding.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to be speaking on behalf of Coach Santoro. She's incredibly ill with the flu. My name is Coach Mascolo. I'm her assistant coach for Brick Township High School cheerleading. And like Mr. Hanshin said, we are incredibly proud of all of our athletes for their accomplishment. This is my 6th year coaching at the high school, and we've had teams fold in the past. We've had athletes start off excited about the season, and there's certain obstacles that they got to in regards to either time or finances, and the team has unfortunately folded. This year we had a very minimal interest at the beginning of our season for a competition team, and after just a certain amount of kids really kind of feeling strong about wanting to field a team, all of a sudden we had also some male interest. We had a lot of male athletes interested in joining our competition team, and one of them stands behind me. We asked him to come today to represent the team as one of our senior team captains, Tommy Costanza. If you could. Coach and I always joke that we wish we could clone him, as he is going to be leaving for college shortly. He's a great kid. I also teach at Lake Riviera Middle School. I'm a phys ed teacher. Our department, we vote on a male and female Hall of Fame member for the phys ed department. Children who represent and embody characteristics that we like to see in our phys ed students, not necessarily just the best jock or the best athlete, the person who runs the fastest, just a great kid. And ironically enough, 4 years ago, Tommy Costanza was our boy Hall of Fame at Lake Riviera. So to see him now as one of my cheerleaders, I can't believe that we had the opportunity to coach him. And just to coach boys, it's really kind of cool for girls. They bring a whole nother element to the whole season and the program. We had 26 athletes. We only had 4 that were interested back when we fielded the team in May. Now all of a sudden we actually had to have a tryout. We had 4 boys come out, and they scored high enough. They didn't know how to tumble. They didn't know how to stunt. They didn't know what on earth a competition mat was like, and they were the glue of the team that held everybody together, because this is the first year we had a co-ed team, and it was really, really neat. And as the middle school as a middle school teacher, I also coach cheerleading down at the middle school, so I create my own feeder program for the high school. And it was with great delight, and I appreciate the administrative staff at the high school allowing the competition team to come down to my pep rally for Lake Riviera Middle School, and they got to actually present their routine. And ever since that day, we have had almost 10 boys now have approached me interested in doing competition cheerleading, and in the way the shift that society has right now in regards to girls being in certain sports and boys being in certain sports. I mean, they made such an impact, and I feel like we're moving in the right direction, and our team's only going to get stronger from this, and we're just really excited. So thank you very much for having us and presenting the award to us this evening, and we look forward to a really bright future for our program, and we hope to see Brick Memorial at Nationals next year. Moving on to bigger and better things.
Okay, our boys bowling program again had a successful season. This year they were 11-1 overall. They were Class A South champions, and one of our bowlers, Jordan Melizia, was the Shore Conference individual champion. Jordan, come on up. Okay, our ice hockey team had for brick ice hockey, it was a fair season, because we're so used to winning championships, and our tradition here in ice hockey goes back to 1963 when Coach Warren Wolf started the program. We did have a few players that are being recognized tonight, for their outstanding performance throughout the year. Our first, J.T. Maloney, who's a forward. He's scored 19 goals, had 9 assists, and selected to the first team A-South. Okay, our next ice hockey player, Michael Mooney, played defense for us. He had some phenomenal games, scoring 19 goals, 13 assists, and also first team All A-South honors. Our goalie, who in many games got really shelled this year, faced 693 shots, had a .918 save percentage, also a junior, and received second team A-South honors. And our fourth, who's a senior this year, senior defenseman with 11 assists and received honorable mention A-South. Kyle Oliveira. Okay, and our next program, girls bowling. Coach Hayes, come on up. Coach Hayes is in her first year this year. She took over for Coach Lukosius, and I'll let Coach Hayes explain to you what a fabulous season they had this year.
Hi, I had no idea how to talk today, so sorry about that. For this season, the girls, we had a very interesting start. We had a rough season at the very beginning. We didn't know how we were going to do anything. We started a new program with a new coach. But these girls, they blew my mind when I made this list for Mr. Hanshin on what they won this year. I didn't even realize how much they won. They were the Snowball Classic Tournament champions 3 years in a row now, the Woodbridge Classic Tournament champions, Winter Classic Tournament champions, the Roll with the Indians champions, the Warren Wheeler Tournament champions for the 7th year in a row. They are also the Shore Conference Tournament champions, the Shore Conference co-champions with Brick Memorial. They are the Group 3 state champions for 9 years in a row. And they are also the only team to have taken Tournament of Champions 2 years in a row. They had an amazing year. I have 2 of my seniors here with me today. The rest of the team unfortunately couldn't make it. One of our seniors, Brianna McLeod. She finished 4th overall for Shore Conference Tournament. She also finished 7th in the state individual finals. Both of our seniors will be going to college next year for bowling, so that's awesome too, on scholarship, which is even better. That's pretty much all I have. Thank you very much, everyone.
I'm having trouble seeing if our male swimmers are here. If you are, raise your hand. No? Okay. We had some very good male swimmers this year, set some individual records. I'll just quickly read off their names. Kobe Dunn set a new school breaststroke record. We had Dylan Gardner, Jacob Greenberg, Kyle Nalawicki, and Brandon Laird. They were the Ocean County champions and new school record in the 4x200 relay. Dylan Gardner, Jacob Greenberg, Kyle Nowicki, and Brandon Laird. They were the Ocean County champs and a new school record in the 4x200 relay. The same four. That was a. She made a few extra copies here. All right, that's it. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Hanchin and Mr. Sarluca. Congratulations to the coaches and to the players. We thank you for coming out tonight and doing a great job. Back to you, Mr. Lamella, when you sit down.
All right, give everybody a few minutes to head out with their families. Again, congratulations, thank you. All right, I'm going to move forward with committee reports. We'll start with facilities.
You got it.
Thanks, John.
The Facilities Committee met with Mr. White, Mr. Lamella, Mr. Gianello, Mr. Edwards, Mr. Iamello, and myself. The New Jersey Clean Energy Smart Start rebate came through, and that was for work at Brick Memorial High School. There's variable frequency control drives to save energy on the chillers that were installed at the high school. So we received a rebate in the amount of $2,400, and I understand there's more to come. In order to keep up with our long-range facility plan, on the agenda tonight is the GeoPeak Power Purchase Agreement contract, which is part of the long-range plan, but we just are updating what the plan is and where we're at with that plan at this time. Sustainable New Jersey application went through. If it's approved, New Jersey Board will receive a trained Environmental Defense Fund Fellow with a specialty in energy project assessment development to work in the district for 10 weeks during the summer at no cost to the board. The Vets parking complex and sidewalks, T&M is putting together a proposal which is on the agenda this evening. There's, I'm going to say it's a few hundred yards of 36-inch piping, cement piping, and what they're doing is putting out to bid for somebody to crawl through the pipes with buckets of cement to seal this up. So I would imagine that it's going to be a tiny guy, to say the least. But it's on the agenda tonight. Also, T&M is doing an updated site assessment to see if there's possibility of improving any of the curbing or the bus ramps at the Vets Complex area. And finally, the window projects. I'm sorry, there's also HVAC number 24 on the agenda for approval, was a vented ventilator in room 203 that had to be replaced. And then we have the arduous task of completing window projects and making sure that the rooms are going to be suitable for staff and students, meeting all the needs. upon the completion of that project. So what we're looking to do for windows is to, rather than have just half the schools upgraded, would be to complete the schools so that we don't have to go back in the near future, because these windows are outdated, they're very old, and they need to be replaced now. So rather than wait, we're going to try and finish that up at this point. We're looking for your support and approval tonight on the window project as well. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Curriculum and instruction? If you have no report, that's okay. Okay. No report. Policy? I know there was a policy meeting.
Excuse me, through the chair. I had sent a question to the C&I committee.
Okay.
And I never received an answer. Was it presented?
I thought that Mrs. McNamara sent you an email today explaining that that was referred to the policy committee because that's a policy issue. We're changing the, about how we grade in high schools. So the next policy committee will take that up.
Okay, thank you.
I don't recall that.
Say
No, it'll be the next one, I was going to say. I
Yes.
don't recall seeing that.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a finance committee report?
Sure. The Finance Committee met the 2016-2017 budget. Mr. Edwards informed the committee that the program portion of the budget is still being reviewed. Mr. Edwards also informed the committee that state aid was increased by a small amount. Pressures on the budget were discussed. Using bank caps was also explained, and the issues of not increasing the budget of the past 4 years were also explained. Mr. Edwards also discussed, explained to the Finance Committee the New Jersey School Insurance Group 3-year commitment and how our agreement cannot be changed until the end of the next school year. Green Cove Marina lease agreement. Mr. Edwards discussed the lease agreement with the committee with Green Cove Marina and what is on the agenda tonight for approval. The proposal for the Middlesex Regional Educational Services Commission to come in and give an audit of the Special Education Department was discussed. The Middlesex Regional Educational Services Commission is a LEA, so therefore it does not have to go to bid or have other quotes. We're transferring funds from other accounts on this agenda. With the board approval of that transfer, we will be reaching out to the commission to begin the services and agreed on timeline. Mr. Edwards also discussed the upcoming transfer of funds into the substitute account. Last year, $1.4 million was requested and needed for that account. At the last minute, $700,000 was cut from that account. At this time, we will need to transfer $838,000 into that account in order to finish the year. About $807,000 is being transferred from health benefits from savings in that account, and an additional $31,000 is being transferred from the dental account for that same reason. Presently, we are increasing that account for next year to avoid this issue. Mr. Edwards also discussed the extraordinary aid audit, with the result being that we'll be paying back about $33,000 from the next year's funds. This comes as a result of a number of appeals. Auditors questioned if all the students on our SC program are attended from the 2013-2014 school year. We have put a corrective action plan in place to avoid this issue in the future. As previously discussed on the advertising on school property is being referred to the policy committee, which needs to review a policy on this matter, which we did, and I will discuss when we get to the policy report.
All right, thank you. And you can just flow right with
Want to
policy.
flow right into policy? Okay. We have a number, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 policies that are going to be, that were reviewed by the policy committee at our meeting. They are up tonight for board approval. All policy reviews and changes were made by the policy committee to be presented to the Board of Education for approval tonight. I don't think I need to get into the specifics. Let's see.
Thank you. Any other committee, any other comments on committee? All right, the interim superintendent's report?
Well, if I can just,
We need to approve
yeah,
the minutes.
I led you astray, Mr. Lamella. I think we need to approve the minutes for the February 25th executive session and regular meeting.
Make a motion to accept the minutes
Second. For the executive session?
for executive session and regular session.
I need to make an amendment to the regular session meeting. Under the board comments area, I spoke about the special education parent advisory group meeting. I complimented Mrs. Susan McNamara for putting the presentation together. However, as much as she's a great asset to the district, I misspoke. I meant to refer to the Director of Special Services, Mrs. Susan Jurowitz, in those comments. And I'd just like that corrected on the record.
You would need a motion to amend the minutes to reflect the commentary as presented by Ms. McCall.
I make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion?
Yeah.
Yep.
Victoria, minute.
Who was Sharon? You were the first?
I second it.
Right. Victoria was the first, Sharon was the second.
So I would make the motion to accept the minutes with the amendment included. First,
vote on the amendment, then you vote on the amendment.
Sorry, Mr. Lamel, we couldn't hear down here. Who had the first and second?
I'm sorry, we're going to vote on the amendment that she wanted to make first. That was first by Victoria, second by Sharon.
Could I just ask a quick
Ma'am.
question? You know me in detail. Since Ms. Bacala actually said what she said, should the meetings reflect what was said, even though it may not have been? I understand what you're saying, but since it is minutes and it is a record, is that something that you can amend?
Or do we just put them on these minutes?
Or does it just suffice that it will be on these minutes that she made the correction?
I would recommend that that's probably the more appropriate thing to do, since the minutes need to reflect what actually was said or happened at the last meeting. So this meeting minutes should probably reflect Ms. Bacala corrected her statement rather than amending the minutes.
Now you're going to move forward with the original motion.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes. All right, now the interim superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Lamella. I'll try to be quick. I had the opportunity to go to Emma Havens Young School and be a celebrity reader. Only at Emma Havens Young School would I be considered a celebrity. But Mrs. Cantillo and Mrs. Cusinelli were there also. I thank them for going. It is a lot of fun seeing the students and interacting with the students. Attended a number of STEM Academy meetings, committee meetings in preparation for the budget. I continued my tours of the district with Mr. White, and I know we have an appointment next week, Mr. White, to continue that and go through the buildings and outside the building to see some of the facility issues. As you know, Mr. White is on the facilities committee. I did not attend, couldn't attend last night, but I heard that we had a very successful transition fair. So I congratulate all the people who volunteered their time and efforts for that cause, and I heard it was really an outstanding job. And I got one wonderful letter from a parent, and you don't often get letters from parents that are so complimentary, and I have it here, and I will certainly share it with the board if they wish. I don't want to say the parent's name, she didn't give me permission, but she went on for 4 pages, single space typed, but I read everything about a Herbertsville teacher, Jerry Bayless, who did an outstanding job for 2 years with her daughter, and it was really a complimentary. I'm going to send a note to Jerry complimenting her on that. She did get a copy, and like I said, I think it should be noted again of an outstanding job that this teacher did. That's all I have, Mr. Lamella.
Thank you. Moving right along, curriculum and instruction.
Curriculum instruction, the interim superintendent recommends items 1 to 3.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Who made the initial?
I did.
Sharon made the initial. And Stephanie second. Any discussion? Any board discussion? Any public comment on curriculum and instruction? Seeing none come forward?
Yes to all, but I abstain on the Monmouth University students in number 3, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes. Operations, Mr. Superintendent?
Mr. Edwards, operations?
Yes, the interim superintendent recommends that the board approve items 1 through 25.
Any board discussion?
Yes.
No, we need a motion and a second.
I need a motion.
So moved. Second.
George and John, first and second.
Board discussion?
Any?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I'm concerned, was that 1 through 25?
Yes. Yes.
I'm concerned about issue number 10. Tentative budget is asking for approval. I wonder, where did the money go when it was cut last year? What happened to that sub-fund? And what happens with the funding of the BTEA raises that were made last year by the board? Were they not funded completely?
I'll let Mr. Edwards answer some of those, but let me first give a little bit of a comment on the budget. I understand that this is a change in the district in the sense that this is a large increase. We're still working on it. I want to emphasize the word tentative budget. We still have 6 weeks to work on this. I came in on February 4th and the budget process was moving along. We followed it through, and now our time is, at least the plan is to, once we settle on a tentative budget, to involve the board members individually and as a group, and the finance committee as a group, to go over this in fine detail and make some corrections and change on it as the board desires. It should be noted that as we get closer to the April 28th date, when the final budget is due, our pencils get a little bit sharper because in a lot of different areas we'll have better numbers, especially in health benefits in that area and a few other of the areas that as time goes on, we get revised numbers, so we will be changing that. Mr. Edwards, you want to answer those questions, please?
I guess I would just ask for clarification because I wasn't sure I really heard the question, so if they could be repeated, I'd appreciate it.
Excuse me, Mr. Edwards, could you speak up? I can't hear you down here.
And I'm having the same problem down here, so sorry.
Oh.
So if Ms. Bacala, if you could repeat your questions because I couldn't really hear you all that well.
You know, it was my understanding at the Finance Committee meeting when this budget was proposed that there was this shortfall of $700,000 in the sub-fund, and I'd like to know where that $800 that was cut last year, where it went, and I'd also like to know about the funding of the BTEA raises that were approved last year and where the funding from that is coming from, considering we have such a large increase in the budget this year.
So two questions. One is, if I understood you correctly, the substitute line item that was cut last year.
Yes.
When the money was cut, it doesn't go anywhere. It just doesn't exist. So it doesn't go anywhere. So I don't know if that answers your question.
So where were we going to get the money this year?
There's a transfer on the agenda that we're looking to take the money out of medical insurance and dental insurance to fund that. So it was budgeted at $1.4 million last year. It was cut to $700,000.
By who?
There's no real support as to why. It was done as a last-minute budgetary decision. In regards to
that cost the taxpayers a lot of money this year.
well, it's not that it. How do you explain that? So, when teachers are out, we have substitutes in the classrooms. We anticipated when we did the budget last year for the 15-16 school year that based upon the district's past experience, that we were going to need approximately $1.4 million to spend on substitutes.
But you didn't budget that amount?
$700,000 was budgeted, so I don't know that cost the taxpayers money. At that time, it would have saved the taxpayers money because you're not budgeting $1.4 million, you're budgeting $700,000.
But that was your anticipated cost.
Correct. So, but it didn't cost the taxpayers money at that time, if that makes sense, because we didn't budget the amount that was needed. I don't know if I'm explaining that well enough or not.
Let me try to. In the last budget, even though the history of the district showed we needed $1.4 million, it was cut in half. This budget, one of the big factors that includes or moves this ahead is that we now have to add that money into this year's budget as new funds because it wasn't budgeted last year. And we have the same history. We're still expecting to, our history shows that we're going to spend about $1.4 million in substitutes, and that's what we're budgeting this year. But that is a new expense this year. We have deferred that expense from last year to this year, really.
So do we have a historian on the Budget Committee this year who knows what we spend from year to year?
Well, we have, you can look as far back as you want, but we look at a 5-year past projection, not past projection, but past history of each account when we go over it. And we look at where the account has been 5 years ago. We look at exactly what has happened over the past 5 years, and that gives us, we hope, and there's always changes every year and some adjustments are made, but when you see a consistency in a account like this one, it's pretty easy to predict that you're going to be about that same number.
Right, but if it was predicted over this 5-year period when you're doing the budget, and 1.4 was the number, how do you justify making a cut of $700,000 from that line item? And who justifies that? How is that justified? And how is that presented to the board as far as, is that a real, were they informed that we're really, there's a history of us needing 1.4 million in this account, but we're chopping that down to 700,000 for, I'm assuming, to stay within a zero increase number. So who makes that justification? And when the board votes on this budget, are they informed that they cut 700,000? They basically cut a line item that they know is going to be 1.4 million and cut it in half.
I mean, I think that the Finance Committee was definitely involved in the discussions of various accounts that were being reduced in the budget preparation, no different than will be involved this year. It's a recommendation of the superintendent ultimately on which accounts. I know this account specifically, the superintendent had thought that a plan needed to be put in place to reduce absenteeism, and by reducing absenteeism, you would need less subs.
And was that
unfortunately,
plan?
What was that
well,
plan?
unfortunately, whatever that plan may have been, which I don't know because I wasn't the one who was going to develop the plan. On April 30th, the budget was approved, and on May 7th, the superintendent was arrested. So what that plan was and how that was going to be brought forth, I don't know. I couldn't answer that for you. I think it certainly was an aggressive plan to try to reduce absenteeism in half, but it's definitely that was the concept that was being discussed, was that absenteeism needs to be addressed in order to reduce this line item.
And he sold that idea to the board?
It was one of many ideas that needed to be put forth in order to bring the budget in at the number that the superintendent wanted to recommend.
All right.
In regards to your second question, in regards to the BTEA raises and whether how they were being funded, the negotiations committee settled a contract with the BTEA that had them make changes to their medical and prescription benefits. Those changes to those benefits funded the raises in year one, and because of the experience of the changes in those medical and prescription plans, we were reportedly going to see a reduction in rates over the future years, which would then also fund future raises as well. At this time, our new broker is looking at that information and trying to do an actuarial assumption, or projection rather, on what those rates will be come July 1st, 2016 for prescription and January 1st, 2017 for medical. As Ms. Gellinella already said, we anticipate that medical will probably decrease. Right now, the broker is having us estimate medical, prescription, and dental insurance increases on a historical trend for the nation, which is 15%, not specific to BRIC at this time because they haven't had enough time to digest all of the information that we have. So that's yet to be determined, how much savings will be generated for medical, prescription, and dental versus what the actual teacher's contract raises are for the 16-17 school year.
Okay.
As far as number 25, I have another question. Number 25, to approve a resolution for civil engineering services for Veterans Memorial Parking Complex as follows. The fee for services shall be as per the negotiated proposal as attached T&M Associates for stormwater management systems, stormwater piping in need of repair, stormwater pipe joint sealing, and Vets Complex reassessment. Would they then, if we approve this, would they then act as the general contractors on the project, or do we assume that responsibility? Who would be sending this out to bid?
So T&M is the civil engineer for the district. So they would be the ones drafting the specifications and assisting us with putting the project out to, in this case, it will assume it will be a quote, not a bid, because it will be less than the bid threshold. Once a contractor is selected, then T&M Engineering would be the consultant that would work on the district's behalf to oversee the project, make sure it's being done correctly, and then would eventually do all the closeout documentation with the contractor on the Board of Education's behalf.
Can I ask a question about the bus driver line, going back to the budget, I'm sorry. You have an item in here that we are paying this year for bus drivers that were hired in, or I'm sorry, for the upcoming budget for bus drivers that were hired in the 15-16 school year. It's my understanding that bus drivers were laid off at one point. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'll lean in here, I apologize. And why were they laid off? So that, again, the budget would fall in without an increase? And was this put off for the payment of that into this new budget? Can you just explain to me what that exactly is and how that worked and how we go about doing that?
Sure, I'll give it my best shot. So the proposed budget had the layoff of 26 bus drivers, if I remember correctly. 25, sorry, Ms. Osborne told me 25, which was a plan that we were working on with our former transportation supervisor. Between the tentative budget and the final budget, somewhere in there, the transportation supervisor took a leave of absence, and then we started working at that time with the, I'm trying to remember what her title was, assistant transportation supervisor, was that? Assistant transportation supervisor, who we are in the process of looking at whether or not that reduction of drivers could actually be accommodated. As of April 30th, we assumed that it could be, but then not too long thereafter, we started seeing some glitches in the plan that was developed, and that there was not going to be the ability to lay off as many drivers as was originally assumed. And so we had to, during this school year, bring back drivers that weren't part of the 15-16 budget.
So we'll be paying for that in the upcoming.
So yeah, so it becomes part, because it wasn't part of the 15-16 budget, those
It'll be part of
drivers
this
are
budget,
part of the
and-
16-17 budget, so now that's looked at as an increase even though they are currently funded. Money was transferred to cover their salaries in the current year.
I'm sorry, Jim, on what grounds are decisions like this made to cut the budget? I mean, there are a couple items here, and I know that this is just preliminary, and these are things that we're going to talk about, but I guess my question is when you guys are looking at this budget and you start chopping things that have a history, as Mr. Gianella said, goes back 5 years of pretty consistent in the ballpark spending, but yet we're seeing, as things are coming back to us to approve transferring funds in because the money is needed, and it doesn't seem to be small amounts. I mean, I don't myself think $838,000 is a small amount to transfer back into a fund that, quite honestly, you knew back when you were doing the budget that you were going to need it. How do you determine that these are actually legitimate cuts that could be made, and is it just indeed the superintendent that was confirming these things and it was brought to the board and the board was unaware that these cuts were being made? I mean, I guess I'm just trying to understand that.
Well, I mean, the budget process itself is a long and daunting process.
Mm-hmm.
We start this back in November. It starts with the program managers making their requests at the various levels, them dealing with their staff in either the buildings or the departments, and putting forward those requests. The superintendent, myself, and this year, Mrs. McNamara was involved in some of the budgets. We review all of those budgetary requests with the program managers. Now, in some cases, there are, estimates made on things, of course, that they're going to need in this case, the 16-17 school year. And those estimates don't always come to fruition, either for good or for bad. I'll give you a good example, one that is always lately been one that's a wild card. Fuel. Mr. Wilson now is the transportation supervisor. As part of his budgetary process, he has to estimate how many gallons of fuel we're going to need for the 16-17 school year for our fleet and what the price of that fuel is going to be. That's, as you know, based upon your own history with paying for gasoline at the pump, that has been a very wild ride on fuel. So this year it's been to our favor. We've been able to take advantage of the fact that there's money in those accounts because what was budgeted for 15-16 is less than what we're paying less now than what was budgeted. Now, going in 16-17, I believe the number that he has budgeted is about $1.40 per gallon. If during 16-17 gasoline for some reason spikes to $2.10, we're going to be coming to you and saying, we budgeted $1.40 based upon the history of this account, it's $2.10. We need to transfer money in to cover it. So there's always estimates because this is not an exact science. This is a budget. And so you have to make projections and do the best you can with those projections. And of course, history is a big part of that.
With all due respect, Mr. Edwards, I don't understand how you can compare fuel costs to $700,000 just removed from the budget and to defer that payment to the next year's budget for the next board to take care of.
Well, Ms. Bacall, with all due respect back to you, I'm trying to give an analogy that would make more sense in various accounts. I'm not saying that account was done correctly or not done correctly. There has to be, when you're going to reduce an account, you need to have a plan in place on how that account's going to be reduced. Use another analogy, medical insurance. If we're going to reduce the number in medical insurance, then we need to have a plan in place as to why. How are we going to do that? And if that plan doesn't come to fruition and you don't make that savings, well, then you have to transfer money to cover that. So it's not always an exact science. Now, where the process ends up, it ultimately ends up at the superintendent, where the superintendent is recommending to the board, and the board is informed through either committees or various meetings that are held. In my time here in Brick Township, we've done it very different ways throughout the years. There's never been one way that it's been done. And the superintendent will make a recommendation to the board on what the budget should look like for 16-17, and the board then votes on that budget.
So for the last 4 years, there's been no increase to the budget?
Or minimal. None are minimal yet.
None are minimal.
And when you say that,
been no
I'm sorry, just
real-
to make sure I can correct that. When you say to the budget, I want to make sure that we're not talking about the budget versus the tax levy. Those are two different things. So when you say there's no increase to the budget, that wouldn't be true, because the budget has increased. To the tax levy, there's been minimal increases to the tax levy, yes.
For the facilities department, the increases in the facilities department, is this, this is an additional capital spending, or is this just due to operational costs?
Well, the facilities department, and let's look at a couple of things on that list. You're looking at a capital projects, which we're putting about $440,000 in there. There was about $1.4 million requested. We cut about $1 million out of that account from the original request, simply because, and I think almost everything in that original request was needed. I think you can't take the whole thing on at once. I think you really have to do it in parts. Last year, I think there was about $33,000 in that account. For a district this size and in the facility shape that's in, that's not nearly enough in capital projects. And when we present the final budget, we're going to show you some things that we think really need to get done. If you're looking at facilities itself, 239, I forget how much was actually in that account last year, Mr. Edwards, but I know it's a significant increase.
Yeah, and so the thing that, to clarify on that, on the spreadsheet that I sent to you Ms. Walreb, is that that's not the actual requested amount, that's the increase over what they had in the previous year.
Okay. Okay.
So that 239 doesn't represent one specific thing, it represents a lot of different things throughout various accounts.
We just tried to, when we spoke to the board, we just tried to give you a flavor of what was driving the budget. And as you see, out of the $7.1 million increase, right now, and again, a tentative budget, but right now, almost $6 million is wrapped up in raises and and really employee benefits. And when we talk about employee benefits, we're not just talking about health benefits, dental, and those types of things. We're talking about Social Security. I think pension is in there, correct?
Yeah.
Mr. Edwards? Correct. So there's a whole bunch of things in there, and some of them, those numbers are given to us, and some of them we're still negotiating. But those are the big driving factors in the budget. And the other issues are a smaller, but I think significant increase in the budget in those accounts.
I have one question. Mr. Gianello, based on your experience as a superintendent, have you seen a district stay flat for 4 years and not end up with an increase like this to run a district this size?
Well, I mean, I've been in a number of districts recently, and no, I can't say I've seen any of the districts I've been in, have I seen a 4-year, a situation where we've had very little minimal tax increase in 4 years. Remember, in this district, about 65% of our budget is tax levy. And if you're not taking advantage of at least a 2% cap, then you're losing ground because every year your costs go up. Your employee benefits are going up every year, even if it's a little bit because of negotiations. Your employee raises are going up every year. Usually electricity, gas, all of the things, fuel is a little bit different this year, but all of those things are putting pressure on the budget. So when you're not raising, you're losing. And we still have a ways to go on this budget, but I mean, I don't see any educationally sound way that we're going to get to zero in this budget.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
I don't think Ms. Walrep is finished.
No, I don't think I am. Sorry. I did have a question on the windows. Is that that's one of these 25, correct? I'm sorry.
Mr.
Work
Edwards,
order?
the windows are included in it. The windows facility,
Yes.
they are.
Yes. Okay.
Number 24.
Number 24. Provide labor and materials for additional windows. I guess I'm confused. Did they miss these windows, or were the buildings changed and all of a sudden there's new windows? I mean, I don't understand.
Try to give you a little heads up.
Mr. Barton has that.
I try to explain the window project, and it's difficult to understand if it's something that's been mistaken to not complete a school, or if it wasn't a plan to begin with. And I don't think that there's enough people left on the board that can answer specifically if the plan to improve the schools was to put in new windows, but only do a portion of the schools instead of the entire school. And all the windows in the school are the same age. It made sense to us to think that you would want to replace all of the windows in the school at the same time, and the money is in the account to do that. And that's what we're trying to decide, if it was an oversight, a mismeasurement, or if it was a plan to not do that. We're taking it on as if it was an oversight to only do half of the buildings, rather than do what has been done and left there. And there's the added expense nobody's discussed there either. The measuring of the windows and the removal of air conditioning units is something else that we're transferring money, I'm sure, this year. At one point, we're in a crunch between now and May 1st. We have to come up with a way to replace window air conditioning units that had been taken out when the windows that were replaced were worked on. They took out these air conditioner units, and there's nothing that we can do with them now. We have to buy new. So that has to.
And this wasn't part of the initial
That's not in any of the costs
So this will
that
be
have to do
additional
with window
costs. This will
projects.
be additional costs.
That's additional cost to our board this year, unplanned for, and that's a mistake, in my opinion.
Thank you, John. Karen?
Is she finished? I don't want to.
No, go.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you. I had a few questions with regards to the budget also. Again, I apologize. I like to look at the detailed budget, and I didn't get that until last night, so I wasn't able to really look at that until today. I guess the first question I have is, who established the priorities for this particular budget? Because I know it's being done differently this year than every other year that I've been on the board. Because this is my first time seeing it. So who established the priorities for this?
Well, I'm not sure I understand what you mean when you say priorities. The process that was being used when I came on board is that the department heads, supervisors, principals were being brought in to review their budgets based on a zero-based budgeting. They sat down with Mr. Edwards, myself, and at times Ms. McNamara and Dr. Caldez went over their budgets, went over what they were asking for, and we looked at those types of things, and I tried to get out, if it was a facilities issue, tried to get out and see what they were talking about. Other people in the district were more familiar with that, and we tried to see what was needed as compared to our resources. And like I gave an example in the capital projects, there was a lot more needed than I think our resources have. But I think you have to put some type of priority on a safety issue first with some of those. Educationally, we have a 5-year curriculum development plan. In my estimation, we haven't been following it, so we have to fund that. So this budget will start to fund that 5-year plan. I think that's a priority. I heard from the board the STEM project was a priority, so we're trying to move forward with that. I heard from the board and the public that doing some facility work in this school was a project, so we tried to include that. I mean, from listening to people during the development of the budget, I think we all developed our priorities of what we felt. And by the way, again, I would do it a little bit differently next year, but this is not a board budget. This is an administration budget. I understand that.
Okay, I just wanted to...
And I just want to make sure everybody understands that in the audience, too. This is an administration budget. We kind of put this together. We've been working very hard on it with the idea that we have 6 more weeks to get the board's involvement and complete the process. The process this is a starting point, not an ending point.
You mentioned that not raising the tax levy by at least the 2% every year causes you to lose ground. But I would also like to stress that what we've been able to do in the past, and I hope that you looked at this year, is by improving efficiencies, you can offset having to burden the taxpayer. And I just wonder, what efficiencies were you able to uncover in your examination of the budget this year so far? Where were you able to realize savings?
We're looking at a number of different ways to deliver what we do better. But with that being said, and we can talk about efficiencies all we want, but when you put next to nothing in facility improvements and capital improvements in a district this size, you have the situation, and you can walk right outside Veterans Elementary School and see a curb that is a safety issue and has been a safety issue for years and hasn't been taken care of. Those are the types of things that if you don't put some money back into your facilities, you begin to lose.
Well, I agree that we do need to prioritize, some of the maintenance, particularly the safety. But when I was going through the detailed budget, I kind of, I thought from hearing from the public, and certainly this has been an ongoing issue, that, we've made great strides the past few years, but there, is such a ways to go. But what was interesting to me is that it looked like there was only about $393,000 budgeted for maintenance and about $473,000 for capital projects. But then I see new supervisors at $97,000, another new supervisor, $86,000, a replacement for a retiring supervisor at $133,000 when the recent contract was made to lower step 1 to a lower amount, trying to, do what we can. We have very limited with what we can do. But when I see all these administrative positions at these high prices versus the money budgeted for the maintenance and the capital projects, it's kind of a concern to me. That's
Mrs.
why I
Let me
asked
just
about-
try to correct Mrs. Cusinelli, because I don't know what you're looking at, but there are no new administrators in this budget.
What is an ES supervisor?
An ES supervisor?
Yes, I don't know what ES stands for.
Where are you, I don't know where you're seeing it, that.
It was on page 143 of the detailed budget. I really, I've
No,
never,
that's the elementary school supervisor.
Yeah. What we're doing, what the suggestion in that is that we have a retiring assistant principal, and we would like to change that position to an elementary supervisor at less cost.
but that is a new position.
It's a trade of an assistant principal to an elementary supervisor.
Just like-
We will have the same number of administrators budgeted next year as we have this year. We might be changing some titles, but we have the same number of administrators.
Well, I hope that the recommendation would be to take advantage of the changes to the contract to not bring people in and skipping over steps and
Well,
and
that's
putting
going to be
them at
determined
these-
by whoever we hire and where their experience is, and where they fit on that salary guide.
So the new world history foreign language supervisor will be you're saying you'll get rid of another position?
We have a
to-
position in the budget as an assistant principal that is not being used presently at Brick Memorial High School, that the recommendation is to move that into a supervisor at less money.
I also was confused about on the sheet that has the sports and activities. I compared it to the one that we had for the 15-16 budget, and some of them were significantly changed, mostly increased very much, and I'm all for providing the extracurriculars, but I was surprised at the percentage that a lot of these were increased or decreased. For example, student council went from $42,000 to $70,000. I mean, we have a wonderful program for that, but I just wondered why it was a priority to add $25,000 to that. I mean, that might be something that could provide some of the repairs
I'll look at
and
that.
windows.
I should just note that some of those accounts that went up or down, sometimes there's a reorganization of what's in those accounts from one account to another. I would have to look at the detail of that and see why, but I can tell you for sure that if that account went up that much, that was questioned at our meeting, then I'll have an answer for you.
Yeah, there were several. I mean, there was quite a few of them. Also, on that same sports and activities, there's a line item that just says various, and that went up to $535,000. And I just wondered if you could give me some examples of what goes under various in that $535,000 category under the sports and activities.
A lot of that has to deal with whether or not, if I may, President Miller.
Go ahead, John.
I would assume that that has to do with which teams are going to have to continue on through their season, making it into the playoffs and so on.
Well, that's why I was asking Mr.
Well, no, it's
Edwards
actually
or-
various is costs that can't be assigned to any one specific team. So, in that, when you're looking at the 11-401 and 402s, giving an example, the athletic directors and their secretaries are charged to that account. They're 402, 401s. They're considered extracurricular athletic expenses. You can't specifically allocate the athletic director to one team or another, so it just goes to various. So that's what is in those accounts. Anything that can't be allocated specifically to a team.
And I
Or to a
noticed,
sport or activity, I should say, not a team.
I'm sure you can understand my concern is that when you're looking to beat the taxpayer for another $6 million, and you're saying that, it's needed, well, I'd like to, when I see additional high salaries, when I see not a lot of money in the things that we're saying that are important, I get very concerned, especially when I see increases in accounts that it doesn't really make sense. And for example, I'm getting the impression that everybody's blaming the teachers for this budget when, as Mr. Edwards indicated, that was completely, for the most part, with very, very minimal difference. They made a sacrifice with changes to their health care and their benefits, and that was it was a compromise that was very fair, and I feel that that's being minimized, what you're saying that the teachers did, because they did make that compromise to fund their own raise for the most part, And I just want it to be fair because I feel like they're getting thrown under the bus with that, and
Well-
I want to be clear on that.
I'd raised that objection, and I'd like to say I didn't blame the teachers at all. I was questioning why the board didn't fund those raises when, and make provision for those raises when they knew that salary was going to go up.
The board did make provisions, and that was offset by the changes to the health care and...
For 1 year?
No, for all 3 years, for every year of that contract.
I understood it.
That was, I can show you documentation of that, but that was for every year.
1 year also.
No,
Jim?
not true. Not true.
Well, he said you didn't realize savings for the next 3 years or 2 years.
For the duration of the contract, that was all taken into consideration, and that's why I'm saying it was a compromise, and it was a trade-off that was a very fair one, and I don't want it to make it, and I don't like the way that the teachers are being portrayed in this, and it was very, that was a give back that they did in compromise, and everybody working as a team on that, so I want to make sure that is not misrepresented. That's very important.
Nobody would misrepresent the teachers' sacrifice.
No, it
It's
was
just
misrepresented about what the cost was, and they made a sacrifice on that as team players, and I don't want that to be minimized. Also, another question I had was, sorry, we have so much with this. Well, I guess I'll just leave it that there's going to be changes in this, and I hope that we will get very detailed information as to where the money that we're asking the taxpayers to go. Oh, I know what I did want to clarify one thing for Ms. Bacala with regards to the substitutes. It was not as simple as just looking back in the past few years. During this time, we also transitioned from having our own substitutes that we would hire, and therefore there was costs involved with our personnel handling that, and the costs and the monitoring and all that being done in-house. That was outsourced, like most districts at this point have done, to a third party. So there was an unknown variable to a certain extent with what the savings were going to be for that. Also, my question,
Do you
through the
know
chair,
what
I'd like
your-
to ask Mr. Edwards, does this new figure include the paras? Because I know initially we were doing our own paras, and now we are also using the third-party provider to handle that for us. So is that all-encompassing?
No, the contracted sub number that you're looking at, I'm not really sure when you said, is this all-encompassing, but I think the number that Ms. Bacala was talking about is just teachers.
Just teachers, but for the 16-17 budget, it also does not include the paras?
Paras is budgeted, but the number that we're budgeting is consistent with the amount that's budgeted for this current year.
So for 16-17, that number that I look at includes teachers and paras?
No.
I'm sorry
What
that
I'm
I'm
saying
not-
is what the number Ms. Bacala is referring to, that we're saying is about a $700,000 increase
I'm
in
not,
budget.
no, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when I'm looking at the
You'll see-
proposed
When
budget.
you look at the proposed budget, you'll see two different accounts. One will be for contracted teacher subs, and one will be for contracted paraprofessional subs.
It's two separate?
Right.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Okay. Well, I'll just wait and see, and I hope that we'll get very specific details, and I would hope that there'll be a lot of efficiencies that are discovered so that we don't have to ask the taxpayers for that kind of an increase, especially in a time when our ratables are still down from Sandy. We have a lot of foreclosures still in the town. People are still struggling to rebuild, and you know what? Believe me, there's many days I go through my own home with a notebook and I write down all the things that I'd love to change and replace here, and it would be lovely to do it all at once. But unfortunately, you have to prioritize. And the most important thing is the education that these students receive and that they're safe. So I'll wait and see, and I'm hopeful that everybody will come to us with a tighter budget.
Seeing no more board questions, any public comment? Just name and address, please. Thank you.
Rick Midakevich, 48 Meadow Point Drive. Good evening, administration and board. I'm here tonight to talk specifically about the Brick High School gym within the budget. A couple meetings ago, our vice president of the basketball club, Matt Venezia, handed out a PowerPoint presentation and I think outlined the problems that we have with the gym. I've been the president of the club for the last 4 years. I've had numerous conversations with Mr. Hanshin, Mr. Philippone, recently Mr. Kleisler, last week Mr. Edwards. And what we're talking about here is safety. I mean, we are beyond, I think, even making a decision not to do it like I've heard every single year. This gym is terrible. You saw the PowerPoint, you saw the gaps in the floor, you saw the bleachers, you saw the splintered wood, gray tape, the bleachers buckling. I understand we have $162,000 in the budget for the gym, right, Mr. Edwards?
That's current budget, yes.
Right. And I think I agree. I heard earlier comments. I believe the capital budget for the whole Brick District was $1.5 million. And I understand it got reduced to about $470,000. I mean, I don't know how we do this. I mean, $470,000 capital improvements for a whole district. How many buildings we have in elementary schools? You know, I don't want to go on a big spiel about that. I really want to talk about the gym, but yeah, we're in the hole here, and I think we can't really piecemeal this thing with the gym. So my main point is, let's get this done. I've heard it for the last 5 years. Someone's really going to get hurt. It is really all about safety. And, you know, over these last few years, there's about probably 50 high schools in the Shore Conference basketball. And I've probably been to most of them. Not every one, but most of them. And I could safely say that our gym, I was talking to Mr. Edwards, we talked about safety, which is the first issue, and he used the adjective about least aesthetically pleasing, I think. I think I would use the adjective, it's the most dilapidated gym, Monmouth County, Ocean County. I mean, it's, does everyone see the gym? Did they take the walk through? Good, okay, I see. Because I think it's a no-brainer. We do have parents here. We do have people to support this. We have some coaches. Let me see what else. And I'll just say this too, is seeing these other teams coming into our gym and being to all the Jackson Memorials and the Millstones and Barnegats. I mean, you see the teams come in and it's really embarrassing when you walk into our gym. It really is. We're a town of 80,000 people, Group 4 school. We're better than this. And I don't know how we really got to this point, but it's at a point where we just have to get this done. I know it's going to take a chunk out of that $500,000, and whatever discussions and meetings you have between now and April 28th, that's the backdoor meetings you have to discuss where to go. This has got to stay in there, or someone's going to get hurt. And let's make Brick High School proud again. Or someone else took that slogan, right? That's all. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Gina Bono, and I haven't been part of this in a long time, but I grew up in Bricktown, and I'm one of, I'm not going to hold the mic. I'll speak louder. I'm probably one of 18 graduates of Brick Township High School in the school system. My family has been here since the 50s, and I think we've had somebody in the school district since the 60s, ever since, and we're pretty much heading on our last child graduating here next year. And I actually can say that I played on a basketball program in the 80s, and what I'm seeing in the gym at this point, why I came from another district. I don't live in the district anymore, but my children still do. And I came to support this in hopes of letting you know how important it is, that even though this seems like a lot of money to put in for 1 year, that we're talking about neglect that's been going on probably for quite a number of years, probably 30 years or more. So if you average that money out over the course of 30 years, it's really not a lot of money to put into this project. This is something that should have been done a long time ago. I've walked on the football field and I see some fantastic improvements there. And I understand how much pride we have in this town when it comes to the football program. And I've shared that pride years ago as well. And I can appreciate that. But I don't know what we're saying to our children, you know, when we continuously send them into a gym that is aesthetically unpleasing, but it's dangerous. And I don't really care how it looks. I care about how it functions. We're asking a basketball team to play on a floor that can't even be varnished. A net that I watched all year long, that half of it was ripped, that it wasn't even replaced. Padding along the walls that would surely not accommodate a player had they go a little too far to the right or left, that they can crack their skull open. And the bleachers, I watched the kids get up and they jump on the bleachers because we're starting to get a bigger crowd of people, you know, coming to the games because the team is getting more successful. And I'm watching the bleacher just bow like this. And I'm sitting on a bleacher that I sat on in 1981, and I probably sat on it during, I forgot what they used to call it. There was a show where they had the crab soccer matches and stuff. Tom probably remembers them.
Gym show.
The gym show, yeah. And this is the same bleachers, same gym. And so we're not asking you for much here. We're asking you for something that should have been done many, many years ago. And it can't be just put off and piecemealed. This, like Rick said, we go to other school districts, and it's an embarrassment to see when they come to our school what it really, really shows other people. And I can't see how that raises property value or interest in moving into the town or anything other than a negative opinion about Bricktown. And we've all heard those opinions about Bricktown. Now that I live outside of Bricktown in Monmouth County, I hear them even more often. And it's really not fair because Bricktown is not a bad town, and it's got a lot of great things about it too. But we're not giving enough consideration to small little things like this. A gym, 2 gyms actually, not even just the boys' gym, but the girls' gym is probably even more in need of repair. And it's really unfair to look at certain programs and give them more precedence than others. You know, like I said, it's just something that's been overdue. It's a no-brainer. It's something that we shouldn't even be here for right now. It should have been done without us coming here and petitioning you to do it. I know if my child gets hurt, then, you know, I'm going to hold the school district responsible for that. Because I've not only I've written letters since my one son was a freshman, and that was 5 years ago, and I haven't seen anything get done. And I stopped, you know, after a while, banging on, you know, the doors and beating a dead horse. I just don't see anybody that's interested in this, and I'm going to come here today and hope that maybe through the support of the parents and the support of the board, maybe when this budget does get to be put through, it seems like you have your work cut out for you. I mean, just in the one time that I'm listening to this whole thing, it just seems like to me you need more money. And that would solve a lot of problems. And I remember years ago when the budget got cut down, and I don't know what the concerns of the citizens are in this town anymore. But I know back when I used to live here, and I lived here for a long time. I only moved out maybe 10 years ago. So I grew up here, and I know that that the kids were important, and the safety of the children were important, and the progress of our future was important too. And you can't do that, you know, unless you have some money to do it with. And I'm hoping that maybe while you're figuring this all out, that you can really, really consider giving us the money into this gym. I know you have other places to put it, but I sincerely hope that you put a lot of thought and consideration into fixing this gym this season. I got one more child in there. We love coming to the games. It's a lot of fun. They're getting a lot better. Noah's surpassed me. He's taller than I am now, and we have a lot of hopes for him in college. And I'd love to be able to go to a gym next year and watch these guys play in a safe environment and one that is conducive to success and winning. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Walt Campbell's 655 Mark Manor. I wasn't going to get up here about the gym. I have some other items. But they have a valid point, unfortunately. Over the last 2-3 years, the locker rooms were a liability. We had to do the locker rooms over. This gym down here, the East Gym, you had heating units. They didn't work. We replaced them this year. It was very expensive. We redid all the lights in both gyms. Yes, we can do the floor, probably be about $85,000. Yes, they're the original bleachers in there. There's no ifs, ands, and buts, but they're going to cost somewhere in the neighborhood between $225, $275 on either side. But the capacity is nil. But we'll fix, you guys are going to fix them. But that isn't what we set up for. When we put the new electrical system in, we upgraded to 12K. And there was a reason for that. Because we wanted to put a new gym over here in the West Court. Okay, you say, oh, you can't put a gym there. You can make it as wide as Brick Memorial, but you got to take 75 feet off the length of it. It would be self-contained. It would have its own heating and air conditioning system. And the beauty of it is, you're only talking 3.5 mil. Using the other locker facilities. That's what kills it, the gym, or the locker room facilities. You can come in and use it. But you can have a real nice gym. You can get your town fathers involved in it, since you guys are sort of going back and forth. And make it a combination community center. Let them pay some of the freight. Because this town's done nothing for us over the years. Nothing. There's always this friction back and forth. Now that we're all Democrats here and over there, maybe you can get them to do something. Maybe you have influence. Between the two of you, maybe you can make it a combination community center and a gym that people could be proud of at a reasonable cost. That takes care of that part for now. Now, budget, that's not up to me. The only thing I want to know there is our friends, did you ever get your operational audit done? Our majority board? That was on your platform for cost savings. Do you remember? Conduct an operational audit to identify cost savings. Did you ever do it?
No, I know our focus right now is special ed. I believe that was a big part of it for us, and that's what we're looking into, and that's what Mr. Gillinello talked about, MRESC coming in. So that was our first and primary focus was special ed, but that was the number one part of it. So that's what we're looking at right now.
That was another thing that's, I guess, down the line. I thought you wanted to hire experienced teachers in special ed.
We haven't hired any teachers in special ed this year. I don't know what you're asking.
Well, what I'm asking, and they're very scarce to get, you had an opening for an occupational therapist. Very tough to get. I think you're hiring one here tonight, right?
Yes.
At the bottom of the scale.
I interviewed the final two candidates, and I hired the best candidate. Bottom of the scale, top of the scale, I hired the best candidate.
In a course like that, you need somebody that's been out in the field and has had number of years.
You're assuming that that person has not. That person is new to education, was an experienced occupational therapist.
Well, sir, it was a bad move. That's one place you can't cut corners.
I don't think we did.
You did. Okay. Next, through the chair to Mr. Barton down there, could you tell the people, especially on the TV, what the cost is going to be on the solar panels and why we only put it on certain schools?
I'm going to smile because there's no way that I would remember an exact cost like that off the top of my head. I could find the number out. I remember voting for the solar panels and which schools that they were being placed on. I remember...
Why were they only put on certain schools?
If I could just interrupt, Mr. Edward, okay.
Could I please? Because I think it's coming out tonight, and most of us here aren't hearing that you can't do everything at once. And that's what the issue is right now. We've been flat, and now we have to do everything. So what can we do? If you continue to try to run a house, a school, a town, with not making little budgets that can start to overtake some of the problems that we're having and seeing, then you're going to be backed up against the wall. Nothing will ever happen. And to answer your question about the solar panels, I'm not sure whether the solar panels are going to save us any money or not.
They may not.
They may not, but we are, go ahead.
They're not costing the taxpayers anything, are they? Right, Jim?
We're entering into them as a power purchase agreement. So the agreement is that the solar panels will be installed on the roofs of the various schools, and in return, we're going to buy the electric at a reduced cost from the provider.
Mm-hmm. And how come we only put it on certain schools?
Age of roofs, structural analysis of the roofs, whether they could handle the load. There was many
Right.
different factors.
Thank you. You want to be chairman of the facilities committee, you got to get on top of it.
Who's chairman of the facilities
I
committee?
thought you were.
Campbell?
I'm hoping tonight we get a list. You got an organizational chart coming out here. I'd like to see the list of board committees and their chairmans and their members.
I wish I was chair of more committees, because I think the board is missing, the budget is due soon. There's a tentative budget being presented tonight. I've been critical about the conditions of the school and just what should be done to help the school move forward. The school is stuck in one place, and we're talking about making the strides, and the past couple of years, I've seen some things done, but I can't say that it's not because of the ebb and flow of the other boards. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that before Mrs. Cantillo's board was elected, Mr. Hersenko had ROD grant approvals, and we had all sorts of projects that came to fruition under Mrs. Cantillo's board. And that's what happens on boards everywhere. So as far as does the board tonight want to see the taxpayers take a hit? Does the board tonight want to say that we should be finding efficiencies and not putting it back to the taxpayers? I'm going to say we should find efficiencies and maybe put it back into the schools, because we can't stop here. We started to make progress with improvements, and we can't stop here. And
We didn't.
No,
We had a change in the board.
We had a change in the board that's willing to go forward, and if we can't have money available to us in accounts that should have money in them already, then how do you expect the board to do anything?
Okay. I'm not going to discuss that anymore. Now the last one is the T&M Associates on the parking lots. We put this thing together a year and a half ago. Jim can back me up on this. This was a top priority at the time, I think. Okay, you're coming out here with a site assessment in this thing you're going to be passing tonight, all right? Now, there's certain things in there that they're not doing, but you got to do it before you do any paving or curbing or anything else. And that's the location of all your drain pipes, gas pipes, sewer pipe, electrical conduits, cables.
That's part of the assessment. That's what
They don't mention it.
That's what the assessment is. It's just updating the assessment that you're
Well,
familiar
just
with.
stay on it and make sure they do it. And then when they say paving, okay, what kind of paving? They just going to throw some sealer down and pave over it, or are they going to mill it? And we don't have enough parking over there at Betts either. We have the availability over there of at least another 150 spots. By paving over, and I gave this to the board way back, paving over those soiled areas. You put the gravel in, put the French drains in, and you use pervious macadam or asphalt, just like we did down at Traders Cove, and it works beautifully. Water passes through. And then the old part, okay, you just mill it. Don't take any short on that.
Now, Mr. Campbell, Mr. Barton's saying that, yes, vets needs to be looked at, but all of our macadams, all of our parking lots.
Oh, yes, that's just the beginning.
So we need, or I would need to say that there should be a little bit of money coming out someplace, and we're not asking for a lot of dollars.
Well, you know, what happened to the $250,000 you got back into the different general funds from, we didn't use it in the ROD grants and whatnot. Got some nice change back, well over $250,000. Most of it went back to the general fund. It wasn't that long ago. You passed that a couple meetings ago.
It's included, Jim. It's included in the 16-17 proposed budget as a project offset to the parking lots.
Okay.
So it is part of the budget.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Now we're not finished. We still got windows. Mr. Barton has some misconception, through the chair again, has some misconception about windows in a school district. Yeah, they missed the ones in front of the vet middle school in the industrial arts, and they missed the ones in the courtyard of Vets Elementary. But the rest of them, we didn't have the money for. That was going to come under an ESCO proposal that was sandbagged by a couple of former board members. He never presented it to the rest of the board. Because Brick Township alone, to finish up those windows, is $1.6 million. If you want to finish up Vets Middle, that's another $900,000. Lake Riv is probably another mill. Yeah, we didn't have enough money. We've already spent close to $5 million on windows and doors and so forth. I don't want people to think that we didn't do anything. It's a disgrace when people say, oh, we didn't do this and we didn't do that.
No.
And we didn't raise taxes either.
Well, this board is not saying that nothing's been happening in the schools.
Well, I hope it continues, because I will stay on it.
Thank you. Sir, please come up.
Vic Finelli, another one from Meadow Point Drive, one of my neighbors. I want to correct a couple of things that were said here before I go into my questions, all right? Number one, Mr. Barton, I started coming to these meetings when the school administration wanted to pass a $175 million referendum to fix up the school districts, right, the buildings. The reason they needed to do that because Mr. Hurchenko had nothing in capital improvements for years, and it wasn't until I started coming here. Let me finish. I started coming here, and I started raising the issue about capital improvements, and that was the year that we went around to each school and did the budget presentation to each school so everybody could come. And Mr. Edwards challenged me to come up with $2 million to fund capital improvements, and I came back with $5 million. That's when capital improvements started, all right? So it had nothing to do with the former superintendent. He had spent zero for years. That's why they needed $175 million. Do you want to respond to that?
I was going to give you credit because I believe that you made us, the board, I wasn't a part of the board, but I thought that it was because of you that the board was reserving $2 million a year to maintain the structures, the facilities to the best that they could without doing any capital improvements. We have nothing in a maintenance budget in this district.
Talking about capital improvements.
Okay, capital improvements, you do get kudos for seeing where the money can be found.
So I forgot to mention, happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody, okay? This is also National Sunshine Week, and I'm not talking about the weather. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to. Okay? A couple other things that I heard. I'd like to ask the interim superintendent. I heard you say you would do the budget different next year?
Yes.
That's assuming you're here next year?
Yes.
Oh, that's pretty presumptuous unless somebody told you you would be.
No.
Okay.
Nobody told me I would be. What I meant was that I'm used to doing the budget differently.
Okay. A couple other comments that you made, right? In your little talk about increasing the budget and whatnot, you neglected to mention the single biggest factor in the Brick District, that we've gone down from 12,000 students to about 9,000 students in the last 8 years.
Really,
and that downward trend.
Really in the last 14 years, but yes.
That downward trend is going to continue. Because
our demographer tells us that we're going to level off in the next couple of years to about 8,500.
I didn't know you had one yet.
See that?
Did you hire one?
The board hired one before I got here, yes.
When?
I have no idea.
When do we hire a new demographic study person?
Jim?
If you know, off the top of my head, I can't remember about
November or December.
November, December?
November, December.
Wasn't that long ago. I'm going to say November, December, but
Well, I hope it's not the same one as we had the last time.
no, it's not the same.
Because, and I'll respond to your comment about the demographic guy doing a study. The last one that we had 2 sets of books. He presented one slide to the public here, which showed a flattening out of the student enrollment, and another slide that he gave to the school board that showed a decline for the next 5 years. And if anybody was here, they remember me challenging both of those, and I got people look at me like, what are you talking about? 2 sets of books for the same one. And I don't know why you think it's going to level out to the next 5 years, because the birth rates are down, everything is down, and it's going to continue down. So you're down about 25% of student enrollment, and even though I realize that the cost of $11,000, $12,000 per student includes the fixed things, there should be some way to capture the amount of money. When you lose 25% of your students, you should be able to save some money. And if you don't think you can do that, you need to look at it again. Also, being a new guy, I'm going to give you a benefit of the doubt, but I found your comment about the curb out front really petty, because I don't know if you know how much money went into this school, this building alone in the last couple of years. What went into it? I didn't
mention this building, I mentioned Vets Elementary.
Pardon me?
I didn't mention the curbing at this building, I mentioned Vets Elementary.
Oh, well, curbing anywhere. I mean, just in this school alone, ask around, get Mr. Filippone on the side and say, what did the school district spend to improve this building in the last couple of years? I think you'll be very much amazed. Okay, so much for that. We mentioned that the budget went up considerably, and I heard $7 million. That's $7 million over what you submitted at this time last year. Also, the tax revenue piece of it went up $5 million over what you submitted this time last year. What happened to the 2% cap?
Jim, I know you can explain it.
Yeah, I think I can explain it. We have a 2% cap, and since the budget has not gone up in the past, minimally has gone up in the past 4 years, that cap is banked, and we have banked cap.
Okay, well, that statement's not true either.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm looking at this year compared to last year, and then I have last year compared to the year before. At this time last year, the budget was submitted, and it was up $4.3 million in the overall expenditures, $1.0 million in what was given by the aid from the state, and the tax revenue went up $3.3 million last year. So I don't know what you consider a little bit, but those are the numbers for last year.
We're talking about increases to the tax levy.
Yeah.
Right? And that's we're not talking about the total budget when we're talking about increases. We're talking about increases to the tax levy. I think Mr. Edwards explained that in the very beginning.
I gave you 3 different numbers. I gave you the overall expenditures, what you're spending in the district, right? I gave you what was given by state aid, and I gave you what was raised by taxes. Now, maybe you don't know what Brick went through in the last 3 years since TANF.
I live here,
and
Mr.
what they're
Finelli.
still there. Well,
I live here.
Then expect an increase, to hit the taxpayers with a $5 million increase. There's way less people here now, and people are moving out all the time because they don't want to pay those taxes. Oh, So let's see, where are we? Oh, Mr. Edwards mentioned at the last meeting, and I do watch the ones that I miss, that the TWU contract had an impact on the budget and you had to redo it. What kind of impact did the TWU contract have? And speak up so I can hear you, please.
I'm not sure what the question is.
You mentioned at the last meeting that you had to relook at the budget because the TWU contract that was just approved had an impact on the budget. That was your comment last meeting, and I watched it. So my question is, how much of an impact, or what was the impact from the TWU contract?
The TWU contract was funded the same way that the BTEA was, through health benefit changes. So I'm not really sure what, I don't recall saying that, Mr. Finelli, so I don't know what it was in reference to.
Trust me, you said it.
Okay. Well,
I wouldn't be
don't
up here
recall
saying it if you did. So, you didn't answer my question. What impact did the TWU contract have on the budget?
I just answered your question. It was funded through health benefit changes.
It was funded what?
Through health benefit changes.
It was funded through health benefit changes.
Correct.
So, in other words, well, let me give you the numbers in case you forgot them. Right? The 4-year increases for the TWU contract went up 6%, 5%, 4.75%, and 4.5%. Those are the 4-year increases. So what you're telling me that all of that money was funded by what they gave up in the benefits?
That was what was worked out in negotiations, yes.
And you really think I'm going to believe that?
You're asking me a question, I'm giving you an answer. I don't
Okay.
whether you don't believe anything I say usually anyway, so I don't know whether it would matter.
We shall see. I guess I got a problem. I guess I got a problem when you say people gave up something. Because if I give up something, then I give it up and it's gone. Right? I gave it up, it's gone. Like Mrs. Cusinelli said, you got to give up some things because you can't do it. So you give it up, it's gone. But what I'm hearing from you, and what I hear all the time here, is, well, they gave up this, but we gave them that. And that's what you're saying. We funded these pay raises because they gave up stuff in their benefits. So they really didn't give up anything. You just took money out from one area and gave it back to them to another area. So if you want to save the taxpayers money, which everybody claims they want to do, you give up something. And the norm is that everybody's paying more for their benefits now. Everybody's paying more. Why shouldn't people working in the school district pay more? And oh, by the way, nobody in the known free world is getting 6% and 5% pay raises. I mean, show me somewhere where people are getting that. And I'll sit up here and say you're right. But they're not. So they didn't give up anything. What you negotiated for is you give us this, we'll give you that. My opinion, whoever did the negotiating should take them out behind the barn because you did a terrible job of that. That's why you got 85% of the budget is salary and benefits. Let's see, item number 12, professional services. Number 1, it says, this is the budget for professional service and public relations, but there was nothing there about public relations, so I don't know. A few people got something on public relations, but when I opened it up, there was nothing there on public relations. Did you get something about public relations?
Mr. Finelli, the public relations and purchase professional services that's referenced there is what's referenced in Title 6A2352A1.
Speak into the mic, please.
The 6A2352A1 is purchase professional service, public relations and purchase professional services. So you don't necessarily have to have public relations in your budget. It's just that's the heading on the code.
Was there money put aside for public relations?
There is not anything in there for public relations.
Nothing?
There's no money. No, in this district, for years, the public relations has been done through the superintendent's office.
Okay. In that same category, if I understand this correctly, and this is strictly from my understanding, $130,000 for the board attorney, that's Mr. Montenegro?
That's the budget, yes.
Yeah. And the $212,000 for special education attorney, that's also Mr. Montenegro?
Well, at this point, I shouldn't say that, and I don't mean to offend Nick, but at this point, the attorney for 16-17 has not yet been determined. So this is a budget estimate based upon historical experience on what we've paid our attorney for both general and special education. So it's not specific to when you're I guess I don't like the inference you're making that it's for Mr. Montenegro. It's for the attorney services that the district is going to incur.
As it stands right now, that would be him.
I don't know who it will be. July 1st,
As it stands right now,
2016.
nothing changes.
I don't know who it will be.
Okay, fine. Item 13. I bring this up every year, but since most of you weren't regular attendees at school board meetings, I'll bring it up again. How many females do we have in football, hockey, and wrestling participating in those three sports?
It's not whether we have, and we go through this every year, Mr. Finelli, so I don't know why we have to continue.
Well, like I said, Mr. Edwards, a lot of these people that are here now weren't regular attendees
so
at
it's
school board
the-
meetings,
what
so
the
I'm
code
bringing it up, it's
requires-
on the agenda. Answer the question.
So the code says you have to list what the cost is of activities. Certain activities are specific to boys, certain activities are specific to girls, and certain activities are co-ed. I have a feeling, though, I have to tell you that as I see this moving forward, we're probably going to see more and more co-ed. So yes, girls can play football. Yes, girls can play ice hockey. So in your past experience that you've shown here is that you want those to be shown in the boys column or in the girls column because there's no boys on the team. That doesn't mean that the girls or boys can't be on the team. So that's why they're shown in the co-ed column.
Okay, maybe you don't hear us like I don't. My question was, and I think you answered part of it, I'll repeat my question. In the Brick School District right now, how many females do we have participating in football, ice hockey, or wrestling?
I'll answer for Mr. Edwards. I have no idea.
Zero.
I have no idea.
Zero.
Okay.
Mr. Edward knows it, and everybody else knows it. There are none.
No, I'd have to agree with Mr. Gianella. I have no idea. So
I know we have had girls play ice hockey.
Okay.
I guess it's not zero.
I guess it's not.
What do they do?
Mr. Finelli.
Mr.
Mr.
Finelli.
Finelli, your comments should be to the board. If you want to have a private conversation, go
Okay.
ahead.
But I think scratch football. I think this is an easy way to get around Title IX by doing that. And if I was a female in this district, or a parent in this district, or even a female coach in this district, I'd be kicking somebody's door down, but I'm not going to fight somebody else's battle. Right? One other question on that. The biggest single line item on that particular category is various, and that's $534,000. Could somebody give me some idea of what various is?
I answered that question already. Mrs. Cusinelli already asked that question.
I didn't hear your answer.
Man, I only give you one shot. Sorry.
Oh, no. I can ask whatever I want if it's on the agenda, Mr. Edwards, so you know that.
Various is anything that we can't assign specifically to a sport.
That's a third of the budget.
Well, the athletic director's salaries, their secretaries, things of that nature go to various.
Okay. I think this was answered, but I just want to clarify it. The solar panels for all the buildings, whichever ones they're going on, aren't going to cost the taxpayers a dime. They're going to be funded, and then we're going to buy the electricity at a lower price, correct?
That's correct.
The only thing that surprised me is some of the school board members didn't know that, but they're voting on this tonight. That's a little scary. And I don't know if we answered this question, but we beat it around a lot. The $563,000 for the additional windows, that's going to be a new line item in this year's budget?
No, that's being paid for out of the project proceeds that were already allocated as part of the $11.5 million lease that was taken out in 2013.
Could you say a little louder?
That's being paid for out of the $11.5 million project.
$11.5 million, which is what?
We did a capital lease project.
Yeah.
You came up and commented on it, I remember. It's included the HVAC upgrades here at Brick Township High School. It included windows at the various schools, doors at various schools. That project.
Okay.
It's being paid
I'm
for out of
glad you
that.
said that, because I heard several comments earlier on about, and Mr. Campbell reiterated that was not true, that previous administration, previous school board wasn't spending any money on capital improvement, but it was $11.5 million bucks.
The capital lease that was taken out was $11,550,000.
So then, I hope everybody up here that was saying money wasn't spent on capital improvements now understands that there was $11.5 million spent And all the windows and all the air conditioning and the science labs and the football field and everything else out there were all capital improvements that were done in the last couple of years. So their impression of nothing was done is totally wrong. A lot was done. And I'm in total agreement with you can't do it all at once. Right? That's why a $175 million referendum went down in smoke. Could somebody explain to me what number 19 is very quickly, and I could sit down?
Follett is may I?
Go ahead.
Follett is a library source where if the students are interested in a project for homework, but the school is closed at that point, they
You
can
said
use
19,
Follett Destiny
I said
Resources.
yes.
Oh, he said 19.
Oh, 19?
Sorry.
Oh,
Number 19, yes.
19, Mr. Edwards, is this?
It's an application we're making for a grant. The Sustainable New Jersey is offering an opportunity for districts and municipalities to apply to have an individual experience in energy management and energy reduction. Would be here for 10 weeks, 40 hours a week, through the summer of 2016. So it's an application for a grant. There's no guarantee that we're going to get awarded it, but it's an application.
So that be you?
Is that me? No. I would be the person who that person that they would have sent here would report to. It's not me. I don't know what you mean by that.
Okay, so somebody is going 40 hours a week during the summer for how many weeks?
No, the Sustainable New Jersey is offering grant opportunities to districts throughout the state to apply for this.
Oh.
And if you're awarded it, they fund an individual to come here and look at the district for energy improvements.
Okay, thank you.
Come on up, please.
Happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone.
Thank you.
As long as we're talking about capital improvements,
I'm sorry, can I just have your name and address?
I'm sorry. Larry Reed, 475 Normandy Drive. As long as we're talking about capital improvements, I want to provide some background. In the 11-12 school budget, which was a 0.5% increase, it was voted down by the voters in Brick when the referendum for the 24% increase in the municipal budget was approved. In negotiations with the municipality, it was decided to take $5 million out of the operating budget and move it into capital improvements. At that time, that was the biggest amount that was ever expended on capital improvements in the district. So that was 11-12. At that time, the board committed to spending $2 to $3 million every year after that, and it was budgeted every year after that. And with leveraging of capital leases, as Mr. Edwards mentioned, you could spread the costs over 5 years. So what we did was we spent over $23 million in this district over the last 5 years on the capital leases and the 2 to 3 year capital budgets to improve the schools. We had to prioritize because as one of the former speakers mentioned, the district voted down, the taxpayers voted down $175 million capital improvement project. So you're all aware of that. So the statements that have been made that there was no money set aside for capital improvements is totally incorrect. I hope the new board members realize that. This year, I think, Mr. Edwards, on your monthly report, it shows an appropriation in capital budgets for $2.3 million, roughly?
That's the lease payment, correct?
The capital improvement budget.
Yeah, that's the lease payment.
Okay.
On the $11.5 million, that's what you're seeing. That's the only.
No, not the, but the capital budget. What was the capital budget for this year?
The capital budget is $2.3 million, which is the lease payment.
Okay. So that just shows you when you spend $23 million, you got to pay for it each year.
That $23 million, Mr. Reed, as you know, had to be for certain projects.
Yes, yes, specific
And
projects.
certain projects then were ignored. And that's the part that our budget wants to reflect, to start attacking those projects.
I understand that. That's a great idea. I agree with it. And I think what was mentioned before is you have to prioritize, and the board members, all the board members should be in agreement on the capital projects that are going to go forward. Whereas you have input from all the people that work in the district. They can tell you which curbs are falling apart, but you need to have the board approve the priorities so that everybody's on the same page as far as which projects you do first, which are the most important. We added new science classrooms here because they were far outdated. We brought in laptop computers for everybody in the high schools because if you can't use a computer when you graduate, you're going to miss out on a lot of job opportunities. So these are some of the things that were done with capital leases and the capital improvements. So any mention that nothing was done in the past is totally false. Okay? The person that is most familiar with all the improvements that need to be made on capital projects in this district is Mr. Campbell, who got up to speak before. He was on the board for, I believe, 1 year, and then he was a volunteer on the Facilities Committee along with Mr. Haifantis for many years. And Mr. White, or whoever is chairperson of the Facilities Committee, I would ask that you add him as a volunteer to your committee because he has a lot of expertise and a lot of knowledge, and I'm well aware that all the board members can't be experts in everything. I would implore you, through the chair, to try and bring back Mr. Haifantis and Mr. Campbell to the Facilities Committee. I think it would be an excellent addition to that committee. You have volunteers with some expertise, give you another opinion as you're discussing some of these projects. In the budget, it was mentioned that there were 700,000 or 800,000 had to be added back to the health benefits because it was budgeted incorrectly. I noticed on your report, Mr. Edwards.
That's not
That
accurate.
was just for substitute teachers.
That was substitute teachers.
Okay, somebody mentioned the.
No, it was for substitute
No, it was
teachers.
for
Okay,
substitute
all right, here's my question then. Health benefits. At the January 31st presentation of your board secretary report, it had an appropriation of $25,053,802. And then it was reduced by $838,000 for your report this month. Why did it go down? Why did the appropriations go down?
That money's being transferred to the substitute line.
Right. That's where you're.
That's where they're getting the money to pay for the substitute.
Yeah.
Okay, so on the substitutes, I think what happened was when the board went to an outside contractor for substitutes, the presentation that was made was that the board was going to save $700,000. That's why that line was reduced.
That was quite a few years ago, wasn't it?
Not that many years ago.
Not in Brick. I think it was just last year in Brick that you
Yeah,
went
Right.
to
last
the...
year for that.
Okay, so again, there's about 800 lines of code in the budget, and as Mr. Edwards points out, it is an estimate. It is a budget. So at the end of the year, you have a reserve. You have available balance at the end of the year. $4 or $5 million, I think, is the way it's been trending, because some accounts are going to be over, some are going to be under. The school board has the ability to make transfers each month to the budget. So where you underestimate something, you can move some money from the accounts that you have overestimated. So that's the natural process, and I'd be happy if everybody knew all 800 lines of accounts and what was on each line. It's a challenge. So, to get each account 100% accurate is a real challenge. And I would like to point out that this, in addition to all the capital improvements within the budgets over the past 3 to 4 years, We did add a full-day kindergarten. We also added all the laptops. We added new teachers, and it was all done within the budget. And I find it a little disingenuine for somebody that's collecting both a pension and a temporary interim salary as a superintendent to say that we should raise the budget every 2 years, 2% every 2 years. I think that's disingenuous. It's a public comment.
Sure, but let me answer it. Okay.
It's not a question. I just made the comment.
And you can have, and I can have an
answer is
yes. It's personal content, and it's also a personal attack.
And it's not warranted.
In my experience, yes, it is. In my
personal
experience as a superintendent and in making budgets for 23 years, as a citizen, I would think small increases every year, rather than a spike that we're looking at now, would be preferable to taxpayers. And I'm a taxpayer. And I would think that anybody who's looking at that type of budget increase a little bit every year rather than big ones would find that reasonable and acceptable in a time when most things are going up every year.
How about all the seniors that live in town that are on a fixed on a fixed pension from Social Security that hasn't gone up 3 out of the last 4 years, and it didn't go up this year? So don't compare yourself to them, please. That's kind of an insult.
Well, sir, again, the personal comments aren't warranted up here. Let's stick to what's on the board agenda, please.
He came back to me.
Correct,
I just
but
made a general
it was the initial comment. So again, I made some comments when we, thank you, sir. When we initially came up that we were going with 5-minute rule. That's something we're going to adhere to. I have had, thank you, sir, I apologize. I have had some complaints from the public about the length of time we let people stay up here. That's something we'll begin to enforce next meeting. I'm going to ask you all to keep your comments to the budget items. And seeing no one else come forward. Sir, you already had your time. I apologize. Thank you. He's allowed to come back. Oh, I'm sorry. No. Didn't the guy behind him raise his? There was someone behind him who had his hand raised.
Last meeting I was here, I started the education process.
Sir.
Let me just continue so there's no misunderstanding, okay? Let me just read you something.
Overdo.
So you understand. I only have.
Sir, I'm trying, but you overdo your time.
Okay.
We said we're going to keep the 5 minutes. You're up here 25 minutes.
I won't even. So was everybody else.
No, sir.
Yes.
No, there's people sitting here shaking their heads. No.
25 minutes.
Again, what's your comment so we can move on tonight?
Yes. Okay. I'll be less than 5 minutes. I'll
Sir,
sit down
please.
for 5 minutes, starting now. Just for your own information,
Thank you, sir. I
all right?
appreciate any information you can give.
When no member of the public wishes to be heard, the president shall close the public comment portion of the agenda and move on. If I have my hand up, I want to be heard. No participant may speak more than once on the same topic unless all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard. Okay? So nobody else had their hand up, so I can come up again. Those are your rules, not mine.
The gentleman behind you had his
Just
hand
in
raised.
response to the last comment, and I'm responding to a comment on the budget.
Yes, sir.
Out of all the people that I speak to, and I've said this at many meetings, not only are the taxpayers in Brick looking for no increase in the school budget, they're looking for a decrease in the school budget, not a small increase in the budget every year, because there's no need to do that. There's way too many things that can be adjusted. So they're not looking for that. So if somebody thinks that's their opinion, they're entitled to it. I'm telling you, the people I talk to, they're looking for a decrease in the school thing because we're the highest tax state in the country.
Are they parents that you're talking to?
Am I talking to parents?
No.
I talk to everybody. I get people stop me in ShopRite and say, oh, you're the guy that talks at the school board meeting. How about this? How about that? Right? Now, if you're a parent and you have your kids in school, well, you might have one attitude. If you're somebody that's making $177,000 a year, you might have another attitude. As Mr. Reeds mentioned, there are an awful lot of seniors in here, myself included. We didn't get increases in Social Security this year.
It's the Republican Congress. What can you do?
What's that?
That was the Republican Congress. What can
Oh,
you do?
please don't bring the politics into it.
Sir, thank you, everyone.
All right, I'm finished.
Thank you. Sir, there was another gentleman that has hand raised.
Here we go. Nice to see you.
Victor Finnemore, 137 Queen Anne Road, Brick, New Jersey. I don't even know where to go with this one. I'll keep it simplified. Since the story came out on Brick Shore Beat about the budget, my phone, I've got at least 137 phone calls from people in the area. Some with families, mostly on a fixed income. The budget goes through at this rate, they're selling their homes. Majority of the people are single homeowners. Maybe some people feel, well, you know, people move in, people move out. You have a single homeowner with a 4-bedroom house. Next person's coming in will probably be a renter with a family of 4. And again, now you have a double-edged sword of more families coming in, which is good to have families in the town district. But when you're dealing with a budget, people who can't afford it, they're going to be stuck, and you're going to force people out. And as Ms. Kuznets said about foreclosures, they will increase. So it's a double-edged sword. The only other area I recommend is work with the town, with trying to bring businesses in to help offset that cost. You have a council that's trying to make changes. You have other departments trying to make changes. Everybody's trying to work together. Raising of taxes is going to do more damage than good over the next 5 years out. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. Seeing no one else come forward, a motion to close public session.
So moved.
Second.
I'm sorry, this is for the, okay. I'm voting no on 10, 11, 12, and 13, yes to the rest.
Voting now on this or to close the session? I'm
We
sorry.
closed it, we're voting on the operations.
On the operations.
Hang on one second. Can you just, Mrs. Kuznets, can you repeat that? I didn't get it all.
No on, I'm sorry, I'm doing what I can't hear anybody else, I know I'm doing it. No on 10, 11, 12, 13, yes to all the rest.
No on number 2. No on number 10. No on number 11, 12, and that's it.
Ms. Cantello, yes to the rest?
Mr. Edwards, my pen broke and I couldn't write them down, but I just, I'm sorry.
But no, you said yes to the rest.
I said yes to the rest.
Okay, we didn't hear you down here, sorry, that's why I asked. Thank you.
Can you come back to me, please?
I'm voting no on number 10. And yes to the rest.
No on number 10. And yes to the rest.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Lamella?
No on 10, yes to the rest.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes on all.
Well, luckily, we have an experienced superintendent who might have seen this coming. I did speak to the county superintendent this morning. We have to have a tentative budget on his desk on Tuesday morning. So he suggested that we schedule, since this may happen, I clued him in that this may happen. We already have advertised for a meeting on Monday at 6 o'clock at the administration building because this facility was closed, being used already. And his instructions were the meeting should not adjourn until we have a tentative budget. So I'm recommending that we follow through with that meeting and schedule a meeting to review the budget, the tentative budget again on Monday at 6 o'clock.
Second.
I made the motion, George second, for Monday night.
think he said it was
At the
already
administration
advertised.
building?
It's already been advertised.
already
We don't need a motion in a
advertised.
second. Yeah, it's already been advertised, so right now we'll have a tentative meeting. I'm sorry, a special meeting on Monday at 6 o'clock.
And it was already advertised because in order to get the proper notification done legally, we would have to do it today.
Okay. Mr. Interim Superintendent, Human Resources.
Ms. Osborne?
The interim superintendent recommends that the board approve items 1 through 24.
Any board comment on Human Resources?
We need a motion in a second first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Motion?
Second.
Number 23. Job descriptions that had been changed in the past were posted. Is that going to, or were not posted? Are these job descriptions being changed? If approved, will they be jobs that are posted
Yes.
and interviewed? Is there any reason why past job descriptions that had been voted on and changed weren't posted before you got here?
I couldn't answer that question. Whenever a number of times, I know board members have asked, and I tried to look up and find out why, and really I have no answer.
Through the chair, I have questions. Mr. Barton's finished.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Are you, John, finished? I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
So, Mr. Gianella, if it was, well, you're doing it tonight, never mind, you answered the question already. If you change a job description, you post that job, that's normal procedure?
Yes.
Thank you.
Karen, go ahead.
Thank you. In number 22, on the organizational chart, since athletic directors will be reporting to the principals, which principals would be responsible for which ADs, and who would be evaluating each of the athletic directors?
Well, I believe even under the present organizational chart, the ADs report to the principal. I don't think that's a change.
So is it each one goes to each, because don't they
Yes.
do the middle school and the high school?
Yeah, but their primary evaluator is the principal of the high school.
Okay, so that's really no change, it's just that,
Yes.
okay, it wasn't clear to me on the org chart, thank you. And also, in number 23, the Director of Special Projects has the IT department as a responsibility. Do you think there should be a requirement in the qualifications that that person have some IT experience?
Well, no, because what we're looking for in that position, and that's one of many responsibilities for that job, and I really don't like the title Director of Special Projects, but we're trying to make a recognized title. Right now, we have a number of titles in our organizational chart that are not recognized by the state, so I want to try to change them over, and they don't give me a whole lot of definition.
So you're saying in that, but does that person need to have a knowledge of IT or not really,
I
because
don't
it's more of a
believe so,
managerial
because
thing?
we have a manager of IT, that's the tech person.
Okay.
This person is who's going to oversee it. I want it more of an educational background and how that technology is going to interact with education in the classroom.
Okay.
So you don't need to be a techie as much as an educator.
Okay, thank you. Also, I noticed that all three of the job descriptions had the exact same requirements, and all three of them say minimum, I'll quote it, minimum of 5 years successful teaching experience and school administration. I guess I guess I have to make a motion to change that wording to say minimum of 5 years successful public school teaching experience and school administration, because wouldn't we want people from public school, since we're such a large district? I mean, I just know.
I would say most of the time, yes, but you can sometimes, and in my experience, sometimes see an excellent candidate coming from outside. And I would hate to close that off through a job description.
So you don't think it needs to specify public school?
No, and I'm going to say 95, 99% of the time, yeah, that's what we're going to find. We're going to find a successful person in public school experienced, but I would not want to eliminate somebody who perhaps has a lot of good experiences from the outside.
Okay, thank you.
Any public comment on Human Resources? Sir, come on up.
Item 22, can I ask who's responsible? Who put this organization chart together?
I did.
You did?
Mhm.
Okay. As far as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, you've been here 2 months, and you'll be here at least 3 more months. And in that period of time, you want to change the whole organization?
Again, the present organizational chart, I believe, had two major failings. Number one, it did not have recognized titles, so the county was telling us we had to change things. And number two, it didn't provide accountability for different positions that I think we needed in this district, and I do have some experience in this.
And you think, being the interim superintendent for 5 months, you're the person who should do this rather than...
No, I don't think so. I think the board does. They hired me.
Pardon me?
The board does. They hired me to do that, and I'm recommending, in my experience, this is the best way to do it.
I don't know what the board told you, so I don't know that the board hired you to change the reorganization chart, but I'll get into that, okay?
Sure.
But this is your baby?
Yes.
5 months, your baby, okay.
No, 2 months, my baby.
Okay. There were some other questions that didn't touch on this. Who writes a principal's performance appraisal under this organization chart?
The directors would share that responsibility.
All 3 of them?
Yes.
Did the principals buy into this?
Did the principals buy into it? No, I wouldn't share it with the principals and the administrators until the board passed it.
Well, in your vast experience, and you're making drastic changes like this, don't you think it would be a good idea to see if the people that you're managing, how they feel about this?
Number one, I don't think it's a drastic change. We're rearranging the same group of people a little bit different to give us accountability and to make proper titles. I don't think that's a drastic change.
Okay, well, how about this? One person wrote their performance appraisals before, now 3 people?
No, I guess I'm not saying it right. The principals will be evaluated, and they'll be split up among those 3 directors.
That's exactly what I said.
No,
3 people are going to evaluate.
Again, I must not be making myself clear. We have 12 principals. We have 3 directors.
Mm-hmm.
Probably each one will be responsible for 4 principals.
Probably? All right, well, let me read you why I feel the way I feel, which is an agenda item number 23, all right? Under each category, Ms. Cusinelli brought up some similarities. I'll bring up some other similarities. Oh, by the way, just so you know, I have 25 years plus of management experience, right, first, second, and third year managers. So I have a good idea of what works with people and what don't work. Now, I'm not an educator, but I am a person who's managed people for 25 years for a Fortune 500 company. So I do know a little bit about it, all right? Under each category, under each manager's responsibility, the number 1 and number 2 item says, evaluates the operation of the schools and makes recommendations. That's each one of them, item 1 on one, item 2 on the other, and item 3 on the other, right? And on top of that, it says, provides general supervision of district schooling, right? So 3 people are going to be evaluating somebody, and 2 people at least are going to be providing supervision. I'll tell you right now, you can't work for 3 bosses. It's not going to work. And if 3 people are inputting you and telling you what to do, and they happen to conflict, which one do you follow? I'm a principal. You tell me to do this, you tell me to do that, and the other one tells me to do something else. Which one do I follow? You don't follow any of them. And unless the performance appraisals are kind of meaningless, which they've done in the past, I don't know where it was where you worked, but in this school district, 99% of the teachers got satisfactory performance appraisals, and 100% of the supervisors get satisfactory performance appraisals. So basically, they were meaningless. And I've seen some of the performance appraisals for principals, and they're sorely lacking. They really are. So you've got 3 people managing 1 person, 2 people, 5 people. It's not going to work. And I'll say it again. If you're going to do something like this, I really think you should bounce it off the people that it's going to mostly impact, and that's the people below you. Because you might not even be here in 3 months, as you said yourself. So it doesn't work. As far as number 23 goes, we're voting on these new job positions, but what are they going to cost?
At the most, $13,000 over a full year.
$13,000 more over a full year?
Over a full year, yes.
Okay. My point being is you've got people up here that spent over half an hour talking about last year's budget and what was done and what wasn't done, but they're going to vote on something not knowing the cost of what it's going to be. Now, you say the most $13,000. I'm saying that these people that are voting on this item, damn well better know what it's going to cost them before they vote on it.
Well,
They don't.
until the people who get the jobs, and I know what salary they came from and where they're going, I couldn't tell you. But as the worst-case scenario, if you want to look towards money, it would be about $13,000.
Do you know who the people who are getting these jobs are?
No.
Then you can't possibly know what they're going to agree upon? with
Yes, I do,
salary today.
because it's in the salary guide. They're part of an association that has a guide, and it would be, at the most, $13,000 for those three people.
Okay. I'm reading the thing that says here, salary to be determined by the contract with the BTASA.
Yes.
All right. I'll say my point again. You said yours. I vote on something, I want to know what it's going to cost. I don't want to know what it probably will cost or it's not going to cost. What is it going to cost? Because everybody up here is so concerned about money, and we heard talk about administrators and why not. What's it going to cost? Put it on the agenda so everybody knows what it is. Not about what it's going to cost or what you think it's going to cost. What is it going to cost? My last question has to do with the administrators at $395 a day as substitute. What constitutes an administrator? What job positions?
We have a retirement at Veterans Elementary School that begins on April 1st. Changing that person, if we were going to do an internal transfer, I would have to change too many people. I've explained to the board that in the past, at the end of the year when you have those retirements, it might be better to bring an experienced person in to handle it to the end of the year, and then reorganize if we're going to transfer, post, find that person at the end of the year rather than in the middle of the year.
So this is for one person?
Yes, that's the per diem expense for a brand new principal if we were going to do a brand new principal.
Okay, doesn't say that. It says administrator, $395 per day. You're voting on something that you're setting a precedent that an administrator gets $395 a day. It doesn't say anything about one person. It's a general category that you're putting down there for.
No, it's really tied to a person that's in the budget that's going to go to that position. Yes, it is tied to one person.
Then I would suggest, because I come to a lot of these meetings and I ask a lot of questions, and if you don't want me to ask questions, put up on there what it is, but it's a person and not
I'd rather answer your question, Mr. Finelli. I enjoy this.
Ah, you would, huh? Well, okay, but then I got somebody else telling me I spend so much time on it.
Well, that might be true, too.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Lamella?
Yes, ma'am.
If this isn't done, could I just ask a question that I missed, please,
Yes,
briefly?
please.
It's a quick one.
No, go ahead.
On the org chart. Am I reading it correctly that paras are reporting to the child study team, not to principals or vice principals?
No, they're really underneath that. That might be a mistake the way that was drawn. Somebody else pointed that out to me. They're not answering the child study team.
They're not,
No.
okay, because that didn't seem to make sense to me. And also, do we have bus aides on the chart? And if so, to whom do they report? Because I didn't see them on the chart, but...
The transportation really didn't change. That whole end for Mr. Edwards' part, we didn't change anything on that side. So
I
it
was
is
just
out
concerned
as
that
it stands.
that title wasn't reflected on the chart, so I didn't know if that was an oversight. I didn't want to...
Like I said, we didn't really change that, so if it wasn't reflected before, they'll answer to the same people.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lamella.
Oh, you're welcome. Seeing no one else come forward, roll call. I'm sorry, sir. Come up.
Through the chair to the super. On your organizational chart, under the business administrator, prior to you coming here, Dr. Caldez took that position and added 3 overseer positions in transportation, cafeteria, and facilities, okay? Gave that overseer an extra $3,000. Okay? I don't know whether you were aware of that. But now that you put him back into the fold, is he still entitled to that additional $3,000?
Again, as the business administrator is part of the organizational chart, nothing changed. I didn't change anything. And I didn't intend to change anything after my discussions with Mr. Edwards. So I really don't know, I guess I don't understand the question.
Well, it was a big bone of contention. Dr. Caldez took it upon himself unilaterally, arbitrarily, whatever, capriciously, whatever you want to do, and tried to appease the particular salary an additional $3,000 above what he was going to get. And it was a bone of contention between certain board members, which rightfully so. I mean, that is your job, but then you put an overseer on top of your job. It doesn't make any sense. So you now have him back in the fold where he belongs, but there's no need for the overseer, the extra $3,000.
I will discuss it with Mr. Edwards, but like I said, my intention was not to change anything on that side of the business.
Okay, but
I'm not, I just don't know what you're talking about. So
you don't want to know.
yeah, because I'm not sure, Miss Osborne and I don't know what you're talking about in regards to what $3,000 are you referring to?
When they were discussing your contract.
I do not receive an additional $3,000. That's what I thought you were going. There was never, that discussion never occurred with my contract, so I don't know where you're going with that. That was never a discussion that ever
he
occurred
put
with my
that
contract.
forward without any job description for those 3 categories.
There was never any discussion that I was part of or was aware of where I was going to be offered an additional $3,000 to oversee positions.
Okay. And please, can we have a list of all the Board of Education committees?
However, I would, no, I'm just kidding.
Okay, don't worry about it.
I'm thinking that you're making a proposal for it, so maybe we can entertain it.
No. You're overpaid now. No way. Can we still get that list on all the committees?
Yes.
And the chair and members? So when we come up here, we can address it through you to that chairman?
Yes, we can.
I think it would make things a little easier.
Okay, thank you.
Because I apologize. I thought John was the chairman of the facility committee.
No.
I'm sorry. Mr. White, are you the chairman of the facility committee?
I am.
Okay, I'm
I
sorry.
rely on John.
Huh? What was that?
I am, but I rely on John because he has more experience.
Oh.
Okay, for advice.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Come on up, sir.
Bear with me.
Thanks.
All right. Come once a year because you got an issue. I think I heard you say that you didn't change anything under Mr. Edwards' responsibility?
Yes.
I'm looking at an organization chart, and I realize it's from 6/14, but it's the last one I have. And I'm looking at the new organization chart, and I know we had some temporary things go on when we were changing people, but Mr. Edwards can answer this. Under the old organization, did the transportation manager report to you, Mr. Edwards?
Mr. Finelli, you're referring to an organizational chart that was before the one that Dr. Caldez changed. So Dr. Caldez had changed it. So yes, at one point, the transportation supervisor and the facilities manager reported directly to the superintendent under the organizational chart.
At one time, transportation and facilities, but I understood that the facilities part of it was a temporary thing until we got a new facilities manager.
If you want to go through the whole history, before Dr. Uzinski, transportation and facilities came under my office. Dr. Uzinski changed that to have them both report to his office, and human resources, by the way, at that time as well, because human resources was also part of my office. Dr. Caldez then recently changed transportation and facilities to be report to my office. So so what you're seeing there, what Mr. Gianella is referring to, is that he's not changing what was already changed.
I guess I have a concern, and I voiced it before, and I'll say it again. Temporary superintendents sure are making a lot of changes.
Seeing no one else come forward?
Yes.
Ms. Cancelo.
Yes.
Mr. Barton.
No on 12, yes on everything else.
Ms. Bacala.
Yes.
Ms. Fulmer.
Yes.
Mr. White.
Yes.
Mr. Lamella.
Yes. Policies?
Policies are recommended. We have, since my computer just died on me, first reading policies on those 5 policies are there. The revision on high school graduation is mandated by the state, and then we have made some changes, some really minor changes to the next 3 for the second reading.
Question?
Sure.
As we stated in the policy meeting, we were just wanted to make sure that these policies were reviewed by our board attorney. I see the changes there. I don't know, Ms. Cusinelli.
The first reading policies were reviewed by our office and discussed with the interim superintendent.
The other ones were not reviewed, though, in the form that they're here now?
My understanding, the ones on second reading were reviewed by prior council.
Well, we made changes since then. We made changes at the last policy. So the only ones that have received legal review then are the ones on first reading?
That's correct.
That from you, what you're saying is the ones that are on second reading were reviewed before, but we did make changes. And
Yeah, but again, those were pretty minor changes, so.
Okay.
Can I ask a question, please, about policy 6146?
Good.
Is it my understanding that the PSAT and SAT scores will officially substitute for PARC as a graduation requirement?
As of right now, yes, but it is going away. 2019, 20, that's right. It has been a little bit in flux because it has changed a number of times until they finally settled on that and even was adjusted last year.
Okay. Under extracurricular activities, students, athletes, and participants are asked to be, are required to be in good academic standing. That conforms to the NJSIAA and district administration standards. Does anybody know what that is?
I do. Tom? I do. They must have, to participate, each district can be slightly different. To participate in a fall sport or a winter sport, you must have successfully completed 30 credits in the previous year. To participate in a spring sport, you must have accumulated at least 15 credits in the first semester or first half of the year. Tom, that's true.
Yeah, I think
when I left
in
athletic,
general, again, the state has changed it over the last couple of years.
That's what we use.
It's a semester rule, yeah.
It is.
But it's not a grade point average or anything.
Negative. There's no
No,
grade
it's
point
just
average. It's
really
based
tied to
purely on credits. Seeing no more board.
Actually, could I ask a question? I thought she was still going. In policy 6145, through the chair, I'd just like to ask Mr. Gianella, we had discussed the good behavior that the superintendent decides. We had talked about in committee, maybe you wouldn't want to have that as an additional thing on your to-do list, that maybe you wanted to delegate that to the building principals, but I wanted to know, do you want to leave it that you will be deciding if the behavior is good enough for participation in extracurriculars personally, or if you'd like to have it say, or designee or principal?
It could happen either way, so, I mean, or designee would be fine.
Would I then make a motion to say, or designee, superintendent or designee on policy 6145?
Mr. Montenegro, that's a minor change. I don't think we would have to do a first reading over again if we did that change.
That change is minimal and can be adopted this evening.
Okay.
Okay. I had one other question, too. Should I ask the question, or do we have to address that first?
Ask your question, Karen.
Okay. In policy 6142.4, we had discussed in committee about changing the language that states within a reasonable amount of time for parents to be able to obtain the materials for that coursework. We had gone back and forth about giving it, maybe making it available on the website so that parents would not risk already having the students receive the information prior to the parents being able to review it. Could you just advise on that?
I don't know if I was there for that whole meeting.
You may not, yeah, you may not
So,
have.
Dr. Caldez was going to make that change?
I thought he was, that was my
Yeah.
understanding too.
Her understanding was, Stephanie's understanding.
Can we table that one, or is that something
Well,
that is
again,
of
is that
a...
a significant change, Mr. Montenegro?
No, that also is not a significant change.
Just make sure say it again, please, Karen. so
Well, I don't have the exact language, but I can tell you which paragraph it is.
Sure.
If you just give me 1 second, I marked it. It's on policy 6142.4. If you go to page 4 of 4, the third paragraph down, it says, upon written request to the school principal, a parent guardian of a student less than 18 years of age shall be permitted within a reasonable period of time after the request is made to examine the dating violence education program instruction materials developed by the school district. My concern was that there was not going to be sufficient time for a parent to make the request and receive the materials and be able to review them, because a lot of times you may not know until the day before that the student is going to be receiving this information. If a parent is, required to file an Oprah request or anything to get that material, that's an additional 7 business days, and I'm concerned that parents, we don't want to override their parental authority. Could we change that to maybe have it say that that information will be available on, say, the parent portal for parents to access at any time, so we don't have these time problems?
let me just be sure that we can do that in a reasonable time. So my suggestion is we'll take 6142.4 off, and we'll bring it back again.
Okay, thank you for looking into that, appreciate it. And then do I have to make the motion for that other minor change on the first one, or is that something that we'll do second reading?
Yeah, I mean, we'll pick that up on the second reading.
Okay.
Would you say it or designate?
Yes.
Second reading.
Or designate, yes.
Okay.
So we're going to make a motion to table 6142.4.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Yes.
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 Yes. Now you got to make a motion on the other ones.
I guess we need a motion.
We need another motion to approve the other policies.
Motion. Need a second?
Second.
First and second?
Stephanie was first,
Stephanie,
and Karen
I second.
was second.
Yes.
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 Yes. Public comment? Come on up, please.
Hi, Mike Conti, 754 Tall Oaks, Brick, New Jersey. I just wanted to mention 2 things quickly. Number 1 is that we're having Career Day here, at Brick Memorial High School on March 22nd, and as well on May 19th, and we're really proud of what the Chamber of Commerce has been able to do. We have about 40 professionals coming in to talk to the students. They've signed up, they're in different groups. Last year we had about 6 groups. This year we have 7 different professional groups, from business to vocational to fine arts. It's going to be a great day, so I just wanted to extend that to the board to let them know that that's going to be happening in the district. And then the second thing that I wanted to make mention of too is that on a very important day, April 8th, my birthday, the Chamber of Commerce scholarships applications are due. They are available on the Brick Chamber website, so that's www.brickchamber.com. And for any juniors, seniors of the school district, and also they're offered up to kids that are also in secondary education as well too, already within their college career. So thank you for your time, and have a wonderful evening, because I'm going to go catch Kentucky and Stony Brook.
Mike, what time is it on the 22nd?
The career days run first and second block, so they're approximately 7:20 to 10 a.m. So we split it up between the two blocks, and we have the professionals around the in Brick Memorial. They'll be on in the gym. We'll put the partition down. There'll be a right side, left side of the gym, in the auditorium, in the library, and then I think we have one extra classroom this year because we added a section. We added a fine arts section this year, so we actually have a local artist coming in. Really cool stuff, and just a variety of different things to get the kids excited and excited about figuring out what they want to do with the rest of their life. And when they find out, they can tell me.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Conti, before you go, do you have any idea how much money the Chamber's raised for scholarships to this point?
I think at last count, we've been consistently doing over the past few years anywhere between $20,000 to $25,000. Through the main driver is the Dream Dollars raffle that takes place. Really, we start handing out those raffle tickets sometime in August, and then it takes place at Chamber Fest, typically in October. So and then we get private donations as well. I know there's been some local businesses that have donated, like Dr. Emma, for example, has donated up to $5,000 over the past couple of years for scholarships. So we have a lot of generous members of the community, in addition to the money that the Education Foundation puts aside for the Dream Dollars raffles and things of that nature. So, but thank you for your time. You guys have been here long enough. Take care.
Thanks.
Larry Reed, 475 Normandy Drive. One question actually, could be a comment. Looking over the board secretary's report, I noticed that from last month to this month, the encumbrance on the workers' compensation went up by over $1 million. And I'm wondering if we had any serious injuries in the district.
Jim?
No, that's the encumbrance that you're noticing is we received our actual report for the 2015-16 school year. So that encumbered amount is the amount that the actuary is telling us that we should reflect as a potential exposure for the current year, based upon the claims that we've already had to date.
And that report came in when?
Within the last week.
Okay,
So,
thank
yeah,
you.
It's really recent.
Thank you. Also on the report, I did find my number here. The total capital expenditures appropriated for this year were $3.2 million, round numbers. As far as the budget for this year in the transportation on the board secretary's report as well, it shows that the entire transportation department is still within its budget. There's still another few $1,000s available after you've taken the expenditures, the encumbrances, and what's left over, so it is within the budget. The transportation department, as far as the raises, the TWU, the whole unit, some other people mentioned, not me, 5%. I think somebody working for $25,000 in the district, a 5% raise is only $1,250. I think they deserve it. I think part of the problem, and this is just comment, public comment, part of the problem with income inequality is everybody looks to get the same percentage. So if you have somebody making $125,000, a 1% increase is $1,250, where if you're only making $25,000, which a lot of our workers in the TWU are making, that's a 5% raise, and I think they totally deserve it. There was an article in the Asbury Park Press a couple months ago, which discussed the board, the politics, and I was quoted as and referenced as being a registered Republican. I called up, she left already, but I called up Amanda Oglesby, told her that was incorrect. I mailed her a copy of my voter profile, which shows that I am registered as an independent or unaffiliated, as they call it. She told her, it was online on Wednesday. I called her on Wednesday. They published a correction in the paper on Thursday, but when the paper came out on Friday, she apologized. They had drawn the copy for the print from a file that hadn't been corrected. So I hear people say, oh, it's the Republicans, it's the Democrats. If you want my record, I'll mail it to you. If you don't believe me, check with Amanda Oglesby, but I am registered as unaffiliated, just so there's no us versus them here. I think the board made an excellent choice in the interim superintendent. My comments before were in no way personal, reflecting on his performance. I think he has an outstanding reputation in his career, and I really don't want to create any animosity, but I think the difference between a 2% increase each year and keeping it flat is a lot of money to some taxpayers, and I think that's important to keep in mind when you're working on the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, please.
Through the chair to Mr. Edwards, what is the situation with the Brick Memorial High School air handler? Last I heard, it was a work in progress. When I hear that term, work in progress, I get nervous.
I'm not really sure what you mean. I don't understand the question.
The question is, what is the status of the repairs to the Brick Memorial air handler that Mr. Hyphantis has been working on?
Oh, okay. Now, that's, as soon as you said Mr. Hyphantis, then I understood what you're talking about.
I thought he'd be here and not.
It's my understanding all the repairs have been made except the filter hasn't been changed, and Roger Riddell, our assistant director, was having someone go over there and do that today.
Okay. Thank you. Yep. And through the chair to the superintendent, sorry to be a little snippy that one part there.
No problem.
All right.
Please, sir.
I'm going to jump around a little bit, so bear with me. I want to talk about bowling for a minute. I don't know how many of you people were bowlers. Years ago, it used to be a very popular sport, and I was pretty much into it. Bowling should be relatively easy. You throw the ball with the same speed every time, you throw the ball with the same spin every time, and you hit the same spot on the alley every time, and if the pins do what they're supposed to do, you should get a strike. And if you do that 12 times in a row, you've got a perfect game. Sounds pretty easy if you can do that. However, what most people don't realize is the alleys have oil on them. And as you bowl, the oil starts to come off, which changes the characteristics of the alley. Now, if you happen to be left-handed like I do, that not that many people bowl on the left side, so your ball comes back wet. I don't know if you realize that the dominance of that girls' team in their sport. I don't think I've ever seen any high school team ever that was so dominant in the sport that they were participating in. And just so you know, and it used to be this, and I think it still is, to be on the PBA tour, you need a 190 average. Some of those girls could leave high school right now and be on the tour. So it's really, really amazing what they did. At the last meeting, you voted on changing the cafeteria budget because it was $50,000 in the hole. And I was just wondering if there's any action plans going on to fix that problem. because I'm surprised Mr. Reed didn't bring it up, because all the time he was on the board, that was one of his pet projects, to get the school cafeteria in general to at least come out even. So is there any plans to fix that? We're all concerned about expenses, and right now, the way I look at it, the taxpayers are paying an additional $50,000 towards somebody else's lunches. Don't all jump up at once.
It's not, yeah, so it's not coming from the taxpayers, the Cafeteria Operations Enterprise Fund, so although it is projected for now for the 15-16 year to have a loss, it's going to be, that loss will be absorbed within their own surplus. They have had years, in the past couple of years, where they've actually had profit, which has generated surplus for that account. In 16-17, our cafeteria manager will be making a recommendation to the superintendent, myself, which will then go to the full board on what that budget's going to look like and how it's going to be funded.
Well, let me make a recommendation. In the past several years, somebody's gotten a bonus for doing a great job, so I hope they're not getting the bonus this year. That's a way to save a couple $1,000s right off the bat. The school, and I don't know how this works, so I'm asking for input. Every month, the town council recognizes Student of the Month from the schools. And I'm assuming somebody sends over the names of the students to be recognized. And if you're shaking your head, correct me if I'm wrong. But here's what happens. The town council says, we're recognizing Student of the Month so-and-so. They come up and they hand them a certificate. That's all that gets said. And these students are there with family members. But for the most part, there's nobody from the school district there. Now, when I say for the most part, Mr. Filippone is there on occasion, but we all know he's had some problems in the past. But in the last meeting in particular, there was nobody there from the school board. So what I'm suggesting, if anything I'm saying is wrong, if you're going to nominate somebody for Student of the Month, at least take a couple minutes to say why they got Student of the Month, whether it's academics or team spirit or something like that. Make it more meaningful, because I go to all these meetings, and I'm kind of embarrassed of the way that works. I mean, really. Student of the Month, Joe Blow, here's your certificate, thank you. It's cold, it really is cold. I think we can do a better job. I don't know who's responsible for that, but I also think at least somebody, rotating basis, either from the school board or the school district or itself.
Mr. Finelli, I was actually there a couple months ago.
Huh?
I was there for that presentation, I think 2 or 3 meetings ago, because someone I knew was a recipient, but that's the only reason why I knew about it. I don't know what the lead up is to it, but I don't receive any notification of the date or the students, so if you want to email me when you know, that'd be great.
I guess for a while, the town has requested that the Students of the Month the names be forwarded, and they recognize them and they're invited. If you want to make it meaningful for the students, and something to be said about them, really somebody who knows them should be there to say something about them, not somebody who they don't even know. So I'll discuss it with the administration of the buildings and see if we can do something else that something that we've done.
With that, you get one attaboy.
All right.
Okay.
It's my first one tonight.
Yeah, well, I give them out when they're deserved. Okay. Just a comment for our council president. If you're going to enforce the 5-minute rule, I hope you enforce the 5-minute rule for your own council members, because you spent, and I counted, 30 minutes talking about what happened on last year's budget. Not when we were talking about this year's budget, 30 minutes was spent on last year's budget. Okay?
Okay.
Also, I noticed tonight that people were just walking up here without you recognizing. The way we normally do it is you raise your hand and you get recognized. Lastly, in going over the Transport Workers Union contract, and please don't answer this by telling me it's in the contract. Can somebody tell me why clericals get 26 paid holidays?
Who gets 26 paid holidays?
Clericals, 26 paid holidays. That sounds like you didn't know that.
Well, I don't think everybody knows the details of every contract, but I would imagine, you're not going to like this, it's in the contract, but we'll check.
I told you, I asked you, please don't tell me that.
But that might be the right answer, but let us check.
Okay. Then I'll go back to my original
I guess I
point.
lost that good job before?
This is going to get a little more verbiage than I normally would say, okay? You mentioned that not everybody knows or reads the contract.
No, no,
And
I said not everybody knows the details of every contract.
okay. You haven't been around as long as I have. But one of the biggest issues I've had over the last several years, and that doesn't include, I mean, that includes other school boards, other people, not just the people that are sitting here. They vote on things and they don't know what they're voting on it. In fact, at one meeting I was told, I don't have 8 hours to spend on the agenda like you do. I'm not on the school board, but I know what's in there. I know what's in there. Why? Because I'm a taxpayer concerned about that. So I'll ask my question again. I know it's in the contract, and the contract was approved by the school board, and the amount of holidays that are paid out average from 10 to 16, and let me find the page. Oh, here it is. 15 holidays for 10-month personnel, 16 holidays for 12-month custodial, maintenance, mechanics, and grounds, 26 holidays for 12-month clericals. So I'll ask my question again. Why do clericals get 26 paid holidays? And I won't accept it's in the contract because you just voted on this contract and it's in the contract. So, and I don't mean you personally. I'm looking at you.
I would imagine.
I look at and I don't. Well, you want to answer this because
Sure.
you didn't vote on the contract.
Give me a shot at it, okay?
Okay.
Okay. I think probably those 10 days are days that school is closed, winter break, spring break, and they count as those paid holidays. Mr. Edwards, am I right?
That's correct.
Hey, pretty good, huh?
Well, maybe yes, maybe no.
Okay.
So, the schools are closed, so those people aren't there. The schools are closed for the custodial people. The schools are closed for the maintenance people. The schools are closed for the mechanics, and the schools are closed for the grounds. Now, maybe the grounds people can do some things, right?
So
Maybe
could
the
all the
mechanics can do some things.
So could all the others.
But the custodial people, the school's not open, so they don't have anything to do.
No. There's work to do. A lot of times in those times, kids are in the building, teams are in the building that we need custodians. So if we give them all of those holidays, we're paying overtime.
So the answer is the school is closed, so they get paid for those days.
No, the school is closed to students in general, but the schools are still open to many different activities. That's the answer.
So then, the clerical people, on a day that the school has no students, there's nothing that clerical people can be doing on those days.
I think most of their work revolves around students being in the building and being active during a regular school day. I wouldn't say that there's no work, but I said most of their work is due to students in the building.
Well, if you people are really seriously looking at saving money, then you really have to look at these contracts when they are presented to you to being voted on. Because I'll tell you right now that I compare what school districts get, and I know that years and years and years ago there was a big disparity. But right now, only 14% of the United States workforce is represented by unions. 14%. And out of that, the vast majority, over 11%, is municipal, township, school employees, all right? That's who's getting it. Now, years ago, they probably needed it, but now you're looking at one particular category, and I'm not picking out, clericals because I don't like them or they don't do a job, all right? But right now in this contract, you have 35-hour work weeks for clericals, except in the summertime, they only work 30 hours a week and they have every Friday off. And on top of that, they get paid for 26 holidays. Now, if somebody wants to do some research and go out in the real world and find me anywhere but in the teacher environment or the school district, I shouldn't say teacher, I withdraw that. In the school environment, anybody in the real world where people are getting that. Most people now are beyond 40-hour week. All you have to do is read the paper. You got to take it home. You got to work 60 hours a week if you want your job. You're going to get stressed out. Yada, yada, yada. You're going to find a job. 35 hours, 30 hours during the summer, 26 paid holidays. That is really, really nice. I realize that some of these people are not highly paid, but when you look at the amount of hours that they work, the per hour money goes way up. Last but not least, and I said this before, I'll say it again, right? You people voted on all of these changes. Pretty drastic changes, organization changes, new people and everything else. You voted for them. Now, I guess you're assuming that the person that wants all those changes is going to be here in July, but if he's not, and a new superintendent comes in, and he has a different way of doing it, and he's the full-time superintendent, then you're going to be changing all of these things again, and I don't think you have, I don't know how many people on the school board actually managed a group of people, a large group of people. I'm talking about, 50 to 100 people where you actually manage the dynamic of managing people, because that's what managers do. They manage people. I don't think many of you done that, and I don't think you have any concept of all and what all these changes are going to do to their heads. And if I'm wrong, I'll stand up here and admit it sometime in the future. But if I'm right, I'm going to make you eat my words. Too much change, too soon, fixing problems that are not broken. You're taking a real risk, and I don't think you understand what you're doing with your own people. And that's it. I mean, these are the people that have to get the job done. You start at the superintendent, and you work on down the line, and until you get to the principals and the teachers, those people ain't really doing a damn thing to educate your students. It's the principals and the teachers that are educating the students. Everything above that is an expense, and it's an expense that needs to be looked at, because I agree with somebody that said you don't save money by getting rid of a couple of bus drivers or a couple of cafeteria people or something. You save money by getting rid of people that are making well over $100,000 a year. Are they worth it? You got to start looking at it. And if you don't, good luck. You're going to leave quite a mess for who's ever on the school board the next time. And then they're going to have to deal with me. One other thing, sir, thank you for changing the question and answer session back the way it was. I appreciate it. It's the way it should be. And I do give out attaboys once in a while. Everybody have a green thing.
Well, that was to me, thanks.
I want to know why these two have the most green on today and some people don't.
What are you talking
Huh?
about? Oh, Sharon.
Sharon's all green. Sharon is all green. Mr. Barton, where's your green?
I bleed green.
Yeah, you're green with envy, I know.
I had a blood test, though.
Starting next month, we go back to one meeting a month?
Yeah. Right. We have a special meeting Monday, and we traditionally have one a month.
Is Monday a public meeting or just a school board meeting?
Do we have to tell the truth on that? The public meeting.
I'll tell you right now, I won't be there.
Oh.
As of now, I said my piece about the tentative budget, but I will be at the meeting for the real budget.
I'm glad to hear that.
And I hope that everybody here spends as much time looking at the budget as I'm going to and Mr. Reed is going to.
Awesome.
I have the questions to ask. That's right now.
Thank
I
you.
read all, how many, 800 pages, Mr. Edwards? Something like that?
925 last time I looked.
say nine something, yeah.
I'll look at all of them and I'll have my questions.
Thank you.
Be prepared.
Thank you, sir. Any board comment tonight? Seeing no one having any comment,
I think we've all said enough.
thank you all for coming. I want to remind you the calendar dates. Spring recess is March 25th to April 1st. We have a meeting Monday, and the next regularly scheduled meeting is April 28th. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.